I really hope that got picked
I mean,
up.
I heard it.
Good.
So it must have been picked up.
Thank you. It's not what you think it is. It's just cherry Coke.
Oh, that's a shame.
I know. I know. If I had alcohol, I would sleep through the episode. It would.
Meanwhile,
It would lull
I've,
me to sleep.
and I've got rye whiskey.
I mean, I could throw this in some bourbon, but I've no. Ooh.
I like, by the way, that
Cherry Coke bourbon.
No, we need to roll back the tape for a second. You just said I need to throw the Coke into the bourbon, implying that the bourbon is the larger portion of the two, and that the Coke is just there for some flavor.
Yes, that is the obvious choice. How would you drink it any other way, Zach?
Just wanted to be clear that that's where we're at. Anyway.
Yeah, the Coke is clearly for a little splash of flavoring.
It's like when you have a mimosa and really you just need some orange juice to color the champagne a little bit.
Yeah. You get it. You're a bartender. You get it. You get it.
Now, if only I were a bartender at an Alamo Draft House where we could drink and then go see a movie.
That'd be incredible. I would. Speaking of movies, this is the Say Report Jr., everybody. A podcast you should be listening to, subscribe to, and downloading every single week. I am one of your hosts, Dale Decker.
And I'm the other one of your hosts, Zach Sarowick. And I gave you a segue before we introduced the show. I'm sorry.
It actually worked. It worked. Because now, resume segue. Movies are fun, huh? It's like a segue in a segue.
I finally discovered how my free passes at work move. Work. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
I almost said move, and then I was like, no, that's not the word I want. It's because I was about to say work twice in a row.
Yeah.
And my brain was like, don't do that. You have to say another word right now.
Well.
And move was the first thing that came into my brain.
Well, the thing is that somehow you knew that if you said work, I would go into work.
And there it is, everybody. That's in my head now for the rest of the day. End of podcast. End of podcast. No, so I was at work the other day, and finally we were trying to figure out, we have just come from a movie ourselves, and I was trying to figure out if there was any way to get free passes to them, because why not? And so I finally asked at work, hey, how do I do that? And my manager looked at me and was like, you print them out from the register you use every day. You just type your name in the search thing and it'll come up.
I just do it.
And then you just print them, and then they're theirs and they're yours. It's like, oh, I could have been doing that for months.
Do they expire? Like, do you have to use them within the week, or?
I think they last a couple of weeks actually. So I can only print 2 a week, but I think I can build them up a little bit.
Well, I'm
not really sure.
That's interesting.
I'm gonna figure that one out.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I took that and I went and I saw Crawl because that was a movie I'd been meaning to see, and I was like, you know what? I have literally no reason not to do it now.
I want to see it.
And I was thoroughly impressed at Crawl. I was like, okay, Crawl is a movie that I knew from a poster. I never saw a trailer. I never saw any marketing on it whatsoever. I didn't know Barry Pepper was in this movie. Let alone, literally, second lead.
Yeah.
And, I come in. And this was like, you know what? I see a poster. I saw a lot of people on Twitter be like, Crawl's pretty good. And I saw a poster for it. And I went, you know what? Good enough for me. Especially if it's not going to cost me any money.
Exactly.
That was one of the best, man versus nature horror films I have seen in a long time.
That makes me very happy.
It's just it's so tense. And the gators look good.
Yeah.
And it's just and it's very clear that they didn't overextend their budget anywhere. They didn't underuse their budget anywhere. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Plus, I got to see 5 trailers, which I haven't been to a movie where I saw 5 trailers in forever. Because even when I go and see saw Lion King opening weekend, the Friday of its opening weekend. Saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Thursday night late show into its opening weekend. And when that happens, sometimes they just get squeezed in with 3 trailers, and then there's your movie because they weren't planning on it.
Yeah. I like that you very slyly slid in what other movies we were going to talk about this
Yep.
episode.
It's like I'm foreshadowing. But like, so it's very weird. Like, once upon a time in Hollywood, I saw a Charlie's Angels trailer with that,
Mhm.
which is not something I would have expected them to slot in with that.
Yep.
I would expect like higher end Oscar stuff, not just, oh, this is the thing that's playing with everything. But with
Crawl.
with Crawl, I got to see like on a big screen, because also like I am not someone that cares about seeing trailers like on a computer versus in a theater.
Yeah.
I think obviously trailers are made for a theater. It's a great environment to see them, but I've never had a problem with it. I know like Devin refuses to ever watch trailers unless
I
they're in the
don't.
theater.
I
You don't either?
Yeah, no. I don't. I try my hardest not to.
Yeah.
And, like, the only time I'll watch a trailer is if I can't skip it before a YouTube video. And even then I don't pay attention because it so many movies have gotten ruined for both Devin and I because of trailers. And so the only way I like to, just like Devin, is if I am forced to in a theater environment. And just like you said, they are built for a theater screen, so to get you more hyped.
Yeah.
You know?
And like it was so interesting to see like what I saw with Crawl also being in like its third week, still playing like 6 and 7 shows a day because I love the studio system for horror movies. Stuber is down to one
Yeah,
one
which it
show a
should
day.
be. Which it
Yes.
should be.
Yes, which is down to one show a day. It came out the same weekend. Crawl is still playing 6 and 7 times a day, and at least a dozen people are in that theater. I saw that movie with like a dozen people
Yeah.
on a Sunday afternoon before I went to work for the night.
Yeah, that makes me real happy because it is one that I still want. Like, I've talked about how I'm not a big horror person. I'm getting into horror, like, the more, I guess, slasher horror films, right? I'm getting more into that. But I have constantly been a huge fan of nature horror and of sea horror. Like, there was a joke in school about me, like, it was a collective film, film department joke of me and sea horror because it's so much fun and fascinating to me. So I want to see Crawl so badly that I almost saw it with Stuber. We almost did a double feature of Stuber and that.
I actually
And-
almost did that weekend it came out. I almost went and saw those movies the weekend it came out. And if I had honestly, if I hadn't already heard Devin talk about Stuber, I probably would have done that another day when I got those 2 free passes and just gone and see both of those.
Yeah, but you saved your time not seeing Stuber.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing.
Yeah.
So I was excited to like sit down. I love the trailer for 21 Bridges. Because I love Chadwick. I'll watch it. I might go see that with another free pass. I probably won't spend money on it, but it's got Chadwick Boseman. I'll see it. But I laugh every time the splash screen comes up that says produced by Anthony and Joe Russo of Endgame. Because the fact that they're selling that movie on the fact that the Russo brothers produced it, and it's got Black Panther in it.
I don't know if I've seen it with that in it. I don't know if I've seen the trailer yet. I want to see that movie so bad.
It's total cop porn, and like I'm a person who has because of the way that is a movie in which like 2 people kill cops and they decide they're going to shut down the island of Manhattan to hunt them down after they killed cops in like a fucking burglary. That's like totally like over the top. It's so over the top on the idea that they would shut down New York for that. But and as someone who like increasingly in my own life has a complicated relationship with cops, not that I'm being arrested every day, but just like I probably surprise not a lot of people that I have a lot of progressive feelings on things. Not to get like super political, but cops are complicated. Yes. Cops are complicated. So I don't watch it's been a long time since I've sat down and watched like a cop show.
Yeah.
Like Bones is the closest I've come to sitting down and watching a cop show in a long time. So, but I'll go see. I don't care. I'll shut my brain off and go watch 21 Bridges to watch
Yeah.
Chadwick Boseman act for 2 hours. Sure.
Yeah.
And then finally got to see the trailer for Ready or Not on a
Oh my
on a
God,
big
Zach.
screen. Did you finally get to see that
Yes.
trailer? I'm so
I
excited for that
I
movie.
I can't believe how excited I am. Cuz I finally saw a trailer I think it was before Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I was just sitting there and I'm like, "Yup, Zach
I
is fucking right.
it's
Like I just need to
so
see this movie."
it's so dumb and
Oh,
funny looking to me.
it's
And I just like, I mean, like the fact that Adam Brody just like keeps appearing and stuff.
mhm.
I love that Adam Brody is not a huge star, but has not disappeared either.
Yeah.
I like exactly where Adam Brody is in his career where he can be in like Scream 4, and he can be in Ready or Not, and he can be in Shazam. Like, just let him just keep popping up in these character things. Like,
Exactly.
let him just keep being.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, like I think it was the first time Devin had seen it too, and we both were just like, this is a movie that is like made for us. Like it is so and I think it's nope, that was a poster. There was a poster I saw that made me really excited cuz it had the
It's
Purge people like in association with the Purge
Oh yeah, yeah,
or
because like it's the
something.
producers of it or something,
It's
and
called The
it's
Hunt.
yes, that's another trailer I saw,
You saw the
which was
trailer?
yes, didn't even know this movie existed,
Nope.
and then the hunt that trailer starts, and I was like, this looks also good,
I saw
like it directly in my like B level
mm,
range of perfectness.
yeah.
I want to see this movie.
I saw I saw the poster at the movie theater for when we saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I saw my birthday on the poster, and I was like, "Ooh, birthday movie for Dale!" And then I looked up and saw it was. I took a picture of it because I'm like, I cannot forget about this because this just looks, based on this very minimalist poster, like I want to see it. So
Oh
I'm
man.
happy you got to see a trailer
Yes,
because
so
that
I get to
means
see that trailer
soon I'll get to see one.
because I love the fact that it just like it started. It's been a long time since I've sat down. I mean, and watched a trailer for a movie where I didn't know what the movie was.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing that gets taken away every time I watch a trailer online is obviously I know what trailer I'm watching.
Hmm.
And the fact that this like trailer just started and I was like, "Oh, what this is. Let's see where this goes." I haven't felt that in so long
Yeah. See,
because I don't
that's a constant
oh.
feeling for me, and it's wonderful.
And then even they played the Terminator Dark Fate trailer, a trailer that I knew has been out there. I haven't bothered to go see because I know I'm going to go see that movie. So I was like, I don't really need to see this. I mean, I know it, and I've seen different screenshots from it, but I've never actually sat and watched that 2 minutes. And the first thing that I went in my head is, fucking Ghost Rider is in this movie. Ghost Rider from Agents of Shield is in this movie.
Oh my God, I saw
Like,
I
I
saw
was
that
already
too.
excited by Sarah Connor coming back,
Yeah.
but you're gonna tell me that Ghost Rider's in this movie?
I saw that trailer too, and I was like, oh my God. That might have been before Stuber. I don't remember what that one was for before, but I was just like, yep, this is getting seen. This needs to get seen.
Terminator as a franchise blows my mind
Oh.
because it is like if you gave that same movie a fifth of its budget, it's suddenly like a cult classic B movie franchise.
Yeah.
Not just because like in the same way that Texas Chainsaw has become the cult hit it is, and yet has like 3 or 4 different continuities between all of its films at this point.
Mm.
The Terminator franchise as a like continuity error just blows my mind that it still gets to be like also a $400 million a piece movie of like, oh yeah, no, we're putting all of our money in this. Ignore like the last 5 movies.
I've
Because
only
like
really ever seen the first one and the end of the second one.
and like Genesis, I can't even I saw it in theaters when it came out and I
Mm.
saw it once. I'm pretty certain it also erases Terminator 2. I'm pretty
Really?
certain it
Jeez.
comes up just as because if I remember, Genesis is Kyle Reese is actually the main character again. Goes back.
Okay.
I know Amelia Clark is Sarah Connor, and it's before John is born. So definitely, no, it's not even Kyle. It must be, yeah, it is Kyle Reese. This is the thing that I can't remember because, like, I can't remember if she remembers who Kyle Reese is, who she met in the first movie.
Yeah.
So obviously she'd know who he is if he came back, but John isn't born yet, which means that that must have happened like literally right before, like while she's pregnant with John Connor. Like that's the only way that movie makes any sense. And like my own brain is already still trying to
Yeah.
remember how that works. So
Yeah.
like, and that was a movie that was like, forget the last three movies because they were bad. And then now Dark Fate comes out. I was like, no, that last one was also bad. Forget that one too. Just like roll it all back to T2. Remember the thumbs up at the end of T2, and then just go from there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh God. So I'm so excited. I'm excited to go sit down and watch that now because like I just want to watch it and let my brain melt trying
Yep.
to figure out what the hell is going on.
Yep. I want to watch them
So
again.
that was like all in all, like that was just like a good day to sit down and watch a movie.
Yeah, I hear you. It sounds it.
I was just
Sounds
like
incredible.
it was just like this whole reminder of like because especially since I've moved back to Rhode Island, I haven't gone back to movies as often. Like there was this
Mm.
time when I was back in the Southwest where I had access to an Alamo Draft House where I would make a day of driving that 3 hours there and
Mm-hmm.
3 hours back and make a whole thing out of it. And I just haven't done that since I've been out here.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden I can do it for free. I spent $6 on a beer while I
Cool.
watched alligators just ripping through people. Oh,
Oh,
it's
it's incredible.
fantastic.
Incredible.
Oh,
Yeah, I gotta get to see it,
and
that one.
with I'm trying. I'll talk to you off air about a possible. This is like a possible spoiler, but also a thing that like if it happens in a movie, it tends to make people not want to see it. And so
Okay.
like I want to be like, don't worry about that because it doesn't happen.
Okay.
I told Devin about it earlier too, and he was like, "Oh, thanks for spoiling. I saw it in the trailer." I was like, "Don't. It's not a spoiler. It's a thing so that your mind is at ease." Well, because that's the thing it's the thing that probably made me the most have a heart attack through the whole movie
Okay.
because I was too worried about this thing. Ugh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um.
So, so that was funny because that's like, oh well, up until today, that was like the last movie I saw. I started
Yeah.
at the end of this story, but also,
Well, hold
how
on.
was Stuber?
Okay. Okay. Good. I was like, I should
'Cause
talk about
I
the
was
movie.
about to jump back, and then I was like, you know what? I've
We
been
sh-
talking a lot.
No, that's fine. I was just like, we should wait before we talk about the three movies
Like,
both of us have seen.
yes, two
Stuber.
of which we're going to talk about a lot, I think. But anyway, sorry,
I wonder
Stuber.
what two. No, I think I know what two. Anyways, Stuber. It's just bad.
But I've heard it
It's-
sucks because Kumail deserves better. I mean, David Bautista also deserves better.
Yeah.
But he exists in a realm where like he can be in both Marvel movies and like straight to video action films and
Yeah.
probably be right at home. So I have no. He's got
It's
My Spy
just-
coming out. He's fine. My
It-
concern is that Kumail Nanjiani also got this.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I was really excited for it because the trailers looked legitimate. They looked legitimately funny, and I've always thought of like, oh my god, what if a Uber driver got caught up in some crazy shit that they had to deal with? So I was like, cool, okay, an idea I've thought of coming to light on screen. With Dave Bautista, who I freaking love, like. Let's see what happens. And then
it was
all
right.
the funny bits are in the trailer. And
It
they're
was-
not even that funny during the movie.
Yeah, it was as a concept like I had not seen. I don't think I ever saw a full trailer for it. Again, one of those things where like I would see clips and things as I was like scrolling through other things and all this stuff. So like I ended up like it was a long time before I know Sejin went up until the episode of Say Report where they talked about it, not knowing that's what Stuber represented.
Yeah.
But like I remember the day I discovered what Stuber was, and it's like, okay, and like that was like the most I had known about that movie.
I
But,
think
like-
it's so funny that I think Sejin thought it was the name of the rideshare or
So you
someone.
just thought it was the name of the rideshare. I
Yeah,
just thought it was the name of one of the characters.
yeah. I don't
And it
see.
never, and then the second that they were like, oh no, his name is Stu and he's an Uber driver, I went, are you fucking kidding me?
That like blows my mind because like I saw that movie and I was like, all right, cool. It's a portmanteau of
I
Stu
just,
and Uber.
my brain never
Like,
made that connection. I don't think about Uber often enough for my brain to make that connection.
that's incredible. No, it was a very it didn't know what it wanted to be. 'Cause it was very inconsistent. And I know Devin went into it, so I won't go too far down the rabbit hole with it cuz I just can't think of it about it that much. But there was a lot of times where it's like you're trying to be heartfelt, but you're like getting there, but you're not. You're just under it.
It,
You can't get there, and it's sad. And then you're trying to be an action movie, which like you have pretty good action sequences, but they kind of get ruined with the stupid jokes that you're trying to pull. And it's just you don't let it never let you breathe. It felt it
it's,
it was
it's,
just it was just a constant like what are you doing?
it's
Thing.
interesting because the way that Devin described it, in the way that like I was thinking about it, is it's just like it sounds like what they had was a David Bautista film, and then for some reason someone went, but
We need
like
more.
for some reason didn't think he was marketable enough,
Mm.
and so for some reason they named the movie after Kumail Nanjiani's character,
Yeah. Like
and like
he's supposed to be the focal
made
point.
him the marketable one in that,
Yeah. And
which I
he's
guess like I mean, credit to Kumail Nanjiani that he's the one that they wanted to market for that. Like, you're gonna pay. We have this buddy cop movie, but really, we think that Kumail's the one that's really gonna get
it,
people in.
yeah, and it's
But like, it
uh,
doesn't sound like he was really the main focus of that movie.
no, and
To
and
even have
he's
him,
like a
to
side
even,
focus and he's a jackass. So you don't really care about it.
it's kind of like if you named 48 Hours after Nick Nolte's character,
Yeah.
despite the fact that it's mainly an Eddie Murphy movie.
Yeah, it's because the heart of Stuber is that it is a cop who lost his the spoilers really kind of it's not in the trailer, but it's a spoiler. I don't care. It's a bad movie and I'm gonna spoil it. No. So it's a cop who loses his partner in battle in a his partner gets killed and he has to deal with the fact that, the reason why he has really bad eyesight. Again, Devin might have explained all this.
He did, and it's still
Yeah.
weird to me every time I think about this as like a weird part of this movie.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
it
make
would
the
have
story.
been such a good. It didn't focus on it. It focused on it a little bit, but it felt like it got forgotten a lot. And I know, and I like Devin's big thing is that sometimes he would be able to see, and sometimes he couldn't. Like it was only convenient. It was only used as a convenience for him not to be able to see.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And
and
it's just like that. Yeah, you guys missed that.
it
That's
sounds like there was a lot
bad.
of lack of faith in this movie in
Yeah,
a lot of ways,
yeah,
like lack of faith in Dave Bautista. So we have to bank on Kumail Nanjiani because we need people to know it's a comedy. So we need to bank on our comedian.
yeah.
And then it's like, despite the fact that Dave Bautista is fucking hilarious
I mean,
in
fucking
Guardians, he
yeah.
can do comedy if he's directed to be funny. Anyway,
And
and
honestly,
then
he's a good. You haven't seen Hotel Artemis, but he's fantastic in that movie, and he's not Drax. Like that's the good thing about it.
it's
Is
not that
that
he's funny doing one thing.
yeah,
He's funny.
he has
Period.
range,
Yes.
and it's like they just didn't want to use that,
Yeah.
and
And
it
then like
sucked.
they had this lack of faith, and like it kind of sounds like they you could write that story without the partner dying, where it's just that he's got bad eyesight, he refuses to get his eye to do anything about it, and people don't want to work with him. So while working alone, he just like commandeers an Uber to do the thing. And then you can do that without, or you do it as the partner died and he's too stubborn to work with other people. So he commandeers the Uber guy instead because he doesn't want to admit that he needs someone
Yeah.
there. So he pays someone to be his friend, basically.
Well, I
If you
think
do one or the other.
I think having the partner die, that's a good in this kind of movie, that is a good motivation.
Sure,
in
that's
my
a fine
opinion.
motivation.
I
No,
think
and that's
that
fine. Go with that version of the
Yeah,
story then.
but
don't
that's
write in the fucking eyesight thing.
No, but it's such I'm okay with the eyesight thing too though, because it's such an interesting concept if it's done well. Because the whole reason why he couldn't protect his partner is because he didn't have his glasses on. So if he had good eyesight, if he had his glasses on, his partner probably would still be alive. So, like, you have that weighing on him, and then you have him go and get the corrective eye surgery, but it's the day that it's on the day that he knows he can get the person who killed his partner, but he still can't see.
Right.
He's still, he's
your
trying
eyes get real
to
fucked
get
up
it.
during eye surgery.
So he's trying, the whole thing is that he can't see. He needs to wear these protective glasses throughout the entire day, which he just abandons. So
let's also point out, not on the poster. It's not like he's wearing those on the poster.
No,
either.
it was hidden, and it's not in the trailer. He's not wearing those glasses at all in the trailer. So, like, kind of cool if they hid that, but it was just like, okay, cool. So you have him trying to fix his weakness, pretty much, and yet he still needs to overcome it in order to protect this civilian who he basically kidnapped, but still needs in order for him to, get revenge on his partner. It could have been so good. It could have had layers. It could have had heart. And it just was such an inconsistent thing. Like, the fact that the entire, Kumail Nanjiani's entire character thing is that he is trying to sleep with his best friend, who has been his best friend since college and who he has been in love with since college.
Right, and let's be clear.
It's just that is lazy and annoying.
And let's be clear, because you just described it the same way Devin did, so I'm going to make a leap here and be like, you mean straight up sleep with her. This is not a situation where it's like, I want her to notice me as a human being because we are in love. It's that he just wants to sleep with her again.
No, it's both. So he loves her. Like, he wants to be in the relationship with her, but the base motivation that day is sex.
So his idea of a relationship is sex. Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
Which, is just skeevy, and the whole time he's it just is gross. It just feels like I feel dirty.
Which also creates another interesting opportunity where you've got Dave Bautista, this big, hulking masculine dude. If the other thing going on in that movie is he's also trying to explain to Kumail why that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
You take the big you take the big beefy dude and be like, oh, by the way, respect women, you idiot.
Exactly. And also, it's like, dude, you respect women, but you should also respect your friend. You are friends. Dude. And it was just, it literally felt like we just need to give him motivation to get away from Dave Bautista. And it's like, you know what could have been motivation? Is that a fucking cop kidnapped me.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why he is staying with him. Except for, there is a moment in the movie where he literally could have just left and never came back. And instead, he just stays. There were so many moments where Stu could have just pieced out. The cop is blind pretty much for the day. He can't find you. I mean, he probably could find you again, but have that be the thing. Have him freaking leave show that, yeah, okay, he's smart enough to be like, peace out, guy, but also show that, oh no, Dave Bautista's still a cop and still has ways to find this person, even though he cannot see in this moment.
Yeah.
And then it shows, even if Commandant Johnny leaves again, there's no way that he'll actually be able to leave. You know? But that doesn't happen. So it's like, why are you staying? He has not, like, really incentivized you with money. He doesn't incentivize. His whole thing also is to get 5 stars because he needs to keep his Uber job on top of his job at a sports center so he can open a spin gym, a cycling gym with his best friend who he is trying to get with.
It's like 80 different ideas layered onto this thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's also be clear. That thing is real. There's like a whole thing about the fact that like Uber drivers are always in a panic about the fact that if they drop below like 4 stars, Uber will drop them.
Yes, exactly.
So like, again, you have an opportunity to talk about a real thing that happens to people, and they just don't even like, it's a one-off joke, not one-off, I'm sure it's like running throughout the movie, like you said, but I mean, it's like, it's a joke. It's not a thing that's like ever seriously sat down and considered and talked about.
But it's also, it doesn't, there was another moment where you could get heartfelt shit, man. Like, and if I'm remembering correctly, the moment where so Dave Bautista gets into the Uber, Commander Gianni brings him to the area he needs to go. He gets a phone call from his friend, and she's like drunk, which is like another thing. She is drunk, calling him and being like, "Let's fuck," and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna take advantage of this situation." So like, dirty.
Yeah.
But
like that means that they had literally an opportunity to make that character be like, my friend is out there drunk somewhere and I'm worried about her. I would like to get her home safely.
Yeah.
And like not even make it about the sex.
Yeah, exactly. But there is that moment where he gets the phone call and then he literally is just like, come on, dude, hurry up. Like, I don't even think Dave Bautista does say keep the meter running, and then there's that joke of I'm not a taxi. But then he could have left. As far as if I was an Uber driver, right? As far as I'm concerned, I brought the customer to where they needed to go. I'm done. I'm gonna get charged anyways.
And Bautista's character does not seem to be the type of person to worry, like to know what he's doing with Uber very often. So like, it's not like he's going.
It's his first time getting it.
Which means that like, oh my god.
But he doesn't leave. But he doesn't just leave. And it's like, dude, I understand, but I don't think the 5-star incentive happens at that moment. I think if it even happens, it happens later. And I think what it's actually is that they're fighting, and Dave Bautista is like, I'm gonna give you 0 stars if you don't. And then they get into a fight with each other, like a physical fight. And that was kind of cool, but I don't think there was ever like, hey, if you do this, I will give you 5 stars. I don't remember that ever being said.
Like, you make that a joke at the beginning when he first picks him up, and he makes like some one-off comment about, I drop below a certain thing, I lose this job, it's so crazy, I hate the way this is set up. And then you make the joke you make that like reference pay off at the end when they're in the hospital, and he says like, here's your 5-star rating.
Yeah. I think it ends up with him giving it to him.
Right.
It ends up getting it. But there's no... And I'm pretty sure when the time that Commandant Johnny says it is not even with Dave Bautista. And again, I could be misremembering, but I don't think it even happens. I think it happens with just extras, like just people who are getting into the Uber with him to show that he's an Uber driver. God. I think it happens in that moment. So it's like, oh yeah, stakes, I guess. But honestly, if I was an Uber driver and I had a crazy cop being like, take me here, I would be like, okay, once I bring you there, I'm out. And if you give me less stars, guess what? I'm gonna go to my whoever the supervisor of Uber is, who I need to report to, because you gotta report to somebody, right? Like, I would just be like,
Honestly don't with Uber. That's a major
you
problem with it. But
don't?
again, it's an opportunity to talk about that.
Exactly. Like,
Yes.
you could bring up these
It's
things,
a whole gig
but
economy problem, people.
there has to be something that somewhere that you
I
could
think
go
the only
to
I think
and
the
be
only
like,
person you
a
go to is the
cop
person.
kidnapped me.
I think the
I
only person you
left.
go to is the person that shows up and says you got 3.5 stars. We're not letting you be an Uber driver anymore. But anyway,
I don't know. It was
I know.
just
But again,
so
that's the thing. It's a
inconsistent.
profound misunderstanding of how Uber works that goes into this movie. Is also the other problem with that, I
I don't know.
think.
I don't know. It was just
Oh,
it could have been so good, and it just every time it would get there almost, it would be like, and we're going downhill again. This is fun.
uh,
But
Dale.
but let's talk
Dale.
about good movies.
Yes, I'm done with Stuber. Stuber's done. It was done after its first weekend.
Yep.
More My Spy is coming out. I hope it does better
I
for
hope it
Dave
does better.
Bautista.
Yeah.
Kumail Nanjiani is gonna be in the MCU alongside him when he goes into the Eternals. So,
Wait, really? I didn't know that.
oh yeah, he's gonna be in. Yeah, he gets to be in an MCU movie
Oh,
with
wow.
Angelina Jolie. He'll be fine.
Holy shit.
So, moving on.
Moving right along.
Yes. Oh my God, we saw the Muppet movie together
Yes,
tonight.
we did.
Saw the I'm so happy. Devin pointed out, made it very clear that he could tell when a scene was coming up that I liked because I would get very excited when a scene was coming. I couldn't stop myself. I just
Oh,
like the
man.
moment they got into the hotel restaurant and I was like, Steve Martin's gonna be here in 30 seconds and this movie's gonna go even better places.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was
Oh,
incredible.
that is my favorite cameo in the whole movie. Is Steve Martin as the waiter with the short shorts and the waiter in the Christmas sweater under his waiter
Yep.
jacket for some reason.
It's funny because it's like I see that and I'm like, so that's just Steve Martin doing his night job.
Basically, I mean that's the thing. That's the thing about like the Muppet Show and then what in the Muppet movie is that it feels almost like every one of those cameos they were like, we want Richard Pryor for the scene, and then they went to Richard Pryor is like, we're gonna have you selling balloons, do whatever you want with that, and Gonzo will react and we'll figure it out from there.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
and like, okay, well, I'm gonna treat Gonzo like a rube at a carnival, and
Yep.
I'm gonna sell him 80 balloons that are gonna make him float away.
So good. Yeah, no, I really really enjoyed it. It was my first time ever seeing it. I got to see
Yeah,
it on the big screen.
you like knew all of the words to Moving Right Along.
Yeah,
I could
because
tell.
because that is like the road trip song that Devin and I will play, and I learned it. I didn't know what it was from. I mean, I knew it was a Muppet thing, but I didn't know context or anything like that. But it is one of my favorite songs. And I obviously know Rainbow Connection. Because you don't live in the world and not know Rainbow Connection.
My parents got some sort of random Willie Nelson album when we were younger, and the first song on it was Rainbow Connection.
Yeah,
because it was just him doing a bunch of like random folk songs with other people,
Yeah.
and like the first one was him playing Rainbow Connection.
I
So
mean,
like it's just out there. It's one of the
such an
greatest
iconic
songs
song.
ever written.
Yeah,
There's
it's
a
so
great-
iconic.
Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, who's like a punk
Yes!
band that does like cover
Yes,
songs.
Yes.
Me First and the Gimme Gimmes Are a Drag is their album where they do show tunes, and
Mhm.
Rainbow Connection is on there.
Yeah,
and
it's
it's a
great.
fantastic version of it.
It's fair. I love
There's
Me
no-
First and the Gimme Gimmes.
I don't think there's a way to do a bad version of Rainbow Connection.
No. If you do, you're pretty much exiled from the planet.
No one lets you make music anymore.
um.
But yes, I was like we sat down in the theater and it just starts.
Yeah,
It just starts
that was
after all of
crazy.
their newbie stuff or whatever it is that they do at Regal. And we sat, and all of a sudden this is like the Universal logo.
Yep.
And then just that whole opening scene in the private screening room, and then it's just this wide shot of the swamp, and all of a
Yep.
sudden my heart it like grew 8 sizes tonight. I love this movie so much. It's like,
No,
oh my God.
It was incredible.
Huh.
It was It was incredible, and I'm
And
so happy that I got to see it.
and I love all of the puppet work that goes into
Mm.
the Muppets. Like just like the whole opening sequence with Rainbow Connection, watching his hand slide up and
Yeah.
down the neck of the banjo
Yep.
and like strum on the strings.
Yeah.
And
The
Rolf, I think I've talked about it before, like Rolf playing the piano is like actually Rolf playing the
beautiful.
piano
Yep.
because they like have a whole system set up for the puppeteers because one of them was trained as a pianist, so
Mhm.
he could sit there and play it correctly.
Yeah.
Oh, it's such a good that's such a good song too. Can't Live With Him, Can't Live Without Him is a great part of that movie.
Yeah. That scene started, and I saw him. I was like, oh, okay, so it's just puppetry. So he's just. But then I saw the fingers moving. I'm like,
hmm
oh my god,
And
that's gorgeous.
I think it still ends up being a track laid over the thing. I think it's still just like a player piano or like no strings inside.
Yeah, but still,
But the pian
like,
but the puppeteer is a trained pianist and is
exactly.
actually hitting those keys.
Yeah.
Like that is all so like
Yeah.
oh my God, the
Yeah.
craft of movie making over the Muppets.
Mhm. I mean, even just shot like again, Rainbow Connection. The pan down into the water is just so beautiful,
in,
and like,
into the swamp, and then you like reveal the fact that Kermit is like right there, but he blends into the green in the background as they
yep,
come closer, it's like there he is. He's right
yeah,
there. He's right there in front of you.
yeah. No, it was it.
Oh,
I'm
an animal.
so
Animal in his
animal.
big scene.
Let me tell you
Don't
something.
worry, Animal. We'll get to your big scene. We'll fix the film.
Let me tell
Film
you.
is okay to go. You can do it.
I here's the thing about Animal. I have loved Animal for so long, and just because I mean, look at him, like
I mean,
he's the best character.
he's pure joy chained to a
Yes,
drum set. How
exactly.
do you?
So I have loved Animal for a long, long time, and I don't even have a huge knowledge of the Muppets. I have like the basic knowledge of the Muppets, but Animal and Fozzie Bear have always been like my two, and when freaking Animal pops out of that building as a giant 60-foot head.
And his
I
mouth
was
just
so
like,
happy.
ah,
I was so happy. And like I never want I want big animal all the time.
I want a thing on my desk that is that building with animals
With
head
animals
popping
head
out.
popping out. Yes. If I could, I would buy that in a heartbeat. Are you kidding me? I don't care how much it is.
Oh
I would
man.
spend. I would buy that. It would be my prized possession. That was so good. It made me so happy.
And
And
like
his painting on point. When they're painting the
oh yes,
Studebaker.
when they're painting the Studebaker.
Yeah.
Can
And
you
he's
picture
just
that? Also a great song.
fantastic.
And again though, like the intricacy of them playing those instruments. He's playing those drums. I watched Devin 2 seats away from me, excited to do the arm motions along with Animal
Yes.
because they are spot on to that drum
Yeah,
set.
it's incredible. But when they're painting him, he's just still playing the drums. It's just on the
Yes,
Studebaker.
it's like
And
it's
like,
this beautiful, perfect
you're
cut
so
between
good.
here he is
You're
at the drum
so
set,
good.
here he is at the Studebaker, like almost like frame to frame perfect as he's like just playing on the car.
Yeah, he really like he's just pure joy. He's just pure happiness bottled up in this little monster who just wants to play drums
And then
eat cushions.
and just like going through that movie and like so many dumb little vaudeville one-liners as they
Mm-hmm.
go. It's a good thing frogs can hop, or I'd be gone with the Schwinn.
Yeah.
Like, oh come on, how is that good? That's so perfect.
All the vaudeville stuff, all the puns just work, and all like the movie references are just spot on.
Oh man.
God, yeah, no.
End of that is that 40 years on, the Muppet movie is still fucking great.
Still holds up. Still
It's
holds
so
up.
good.
Yep.
It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. It was,
Oh
incredible.
man. And then Orson Welles at the end is like his one line, just staring them down for 45 seconds of silence, and just, Tracy, can you get me the rich and famous contract for the Kermit the Frog and his friends?
It's like, yeah,
Which is
that's
like
perfect.
when you look at this movie as what it is, which is they are watching the movie they made about their coming together. So you're
Exactly.
watching them watch this movie that they wrote about themselves, and like they got like after all of this wild story going across America to get to it. They get to the office, and it's one of the shortest scenes in the whole movie, and it's just handed right to them because that's not the important part of all of
Nope.
this. You know that we got it. Why do I don't have to show you this part.
Exactly.
They gave us
Exactly.
a contract, and we made the Muppet Show, and we love each other.
Yeah.
That's what you need to know about this.
Exactly.
The
I
important
like
scene
that
was
it's
20 minutes ago when we were in the Western town, and Kermit was talking about the fact that he finally found a family.
family. Exactly. Exactly. I really like that. Yeah, it's a movie within it's a show because they end it with the Muppet Show, basically, right?
Basically,
So
yeah.
it's a show within a movie within a movie. Beautiful.
Oh
Within a
man.
movie.
And
Wait,
Kermit's nephew hanging out with
I
him during that show.
love Kermit's nephew.
Oh man.
I
No,
don't know
Kermit, is this really
why.
how you guys got to meet? Yeah, approximately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
We
about
we
right.
fudged some stuff in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. No,
There-
I loved it. It was great. It,
there's a great like scene in from one of the episodes of the Muppet Show. I forget who the guest was, but they were talking to Kermit. And for anybody who might not know for whatever reason, the Muppet Show is like one of your garden variety like 70s variety shows like as kind of like SNL and all that with sketch shows and stuff like that. But Kermit was the showrunner and then everybody else around him, and there was always this idea that Kermit was like the straight man to the rest of the Muppets, and that everybody else was this wild and crazy person, and that Kermit was the one wrangling them all together. And this guest star comes up to Kermit one day and just says, "How do you do this? How are you How do you keep sane in all of this?" And he looked at her and he said, "Lady, I choose to spend my night with these people every day. I'm just as nuts as the rest of them."
perfect.
And
The
it's like,
perfect
yes,
answer.
excellent.
Excellent answer.
Oh man.
Ugh.
And so you go at looking at movie making from 40 years ago, and somewhat movie making with Stuber, and great movie making with Crawl, and then you look at movie making today with The Lion King and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Flip a coin. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Um, I feel Lion King. Let's do Lion King.
Let's do Lion King. Let's do Lion King because after a couple of weeks, it's the one that we both saw like earliest, so
Yeah.
probably more out of our memories and stuff. And
No, it's still fresh in
it's
mine
sure
because
it's
I'm
still
still
fresh in your
fighting
memory.
people.
Okay, I don't want to. I don't want to fight. Let me
No,
give
no,
you my
no, no, no,
exact.
no, no, no. I don't want to fight either.
This
I'm
that's
just,
not what this. That's not what
I'm.
this podcast is.
No,
We
it's
don't
not.
fight
We
about
don't
things.
fight.
We love
It's,
things.
it's fighting other people.
Here's the thing, because I was working last night at the theater at the bar,
Mhm.
still doing 80 shows a day of Lion King.
Mhm.
Family comes in at like 10 something. I don't know. I'm closing at this point. So they're one of my last customers. All of them in their pajamas.
Beautiful.
Definitely looks like they were all sitting at home and the kids were a little crazy. And someone just turned to the other one and said, "Hey, you know what? Let's go to the fucking Lion King and shut these kids up." So they all just got in the car and left without bothering to change out of their pajamas.
That's the best way to
Fine.
go see a movie. I've
Sure.
seen so many movies in my pajamas.
Monday night at like 10:15. Sure. Whatever. So making the drink for the guy, and he says, "It just, we're here to see Lion King. Have you seen it?" I said, "Yeah, I saw it a couple weeks ago, opening weekend or whatever." He's like, "Oh, did you like it?" I said, "Dude, it's Lion King. It's not bad. It
Yeah.
can't be bad."
Yeah.
He was like,
Fair.
and he looked at me and he was like, "Yeah, you're right, actually." And he took his drink and they went off.
I mean, yeah, that's
So,
fair.
like we talked about with Aladdin, I'm starting to look at a lot of these remakes and things as like, I mean, obviously adaptations, but
Mhm.
like plays, and
Exactly.
Lion King especially because it's very close to the original. Although there was one specific area where they made some changes that I very much enjoyed, but the rest of the movie was very close to like shot for shot the
Yeah.
original. Um,
Was it Hakuna Matata?
I mean, it was Timon and Pumbaa in general,
Yeah, yeah.
but and Hakuna Matata and like a lot of stuff going on around them is some changes were made that I really liked what they did with those
Same.
performances.
Me too.
But I think the rest of the movie was very close to shot for shot, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's very easy for then people to sit down and compare the two and be like,
Well,
well,
yes.
since I liked this one more and I don't like this one as much, I'm going to shit on this one.
Yeah.
And I don't think it deserves that. I think they made some choices with this one that I don't fully get on board with, but I don't think that that's I mean, I don't think it's bad that they made those choices. Like I'm not mad at them. I'm not mad that like
Mm-hmm.
you want to know I can still go back and watch The Lion King? Because the weekend that The Lion King came out in 2019, Freeform decided that was the weekend that they were also going to play the original Lion King from 1996 in the theater when I was working. So I'm sitting there watching The Lion King while people are coming up to me going, "Oh, is that The Lion King? Oh, it's their first time seeing that. They don't need to see that yet." And they walked away.
Yeah. I
Disney is bad at
I
timing
mean,
sometimes.
here's the
Ugh.
biggest thing for me is again, these shitting on these movies is something that it's like, okay, the original still exists, guys. You don't have to be so angry. And no one stole your childhood and like bottled it away somewhere and you can never get it back.
Especially with
Like,
Disney Plus coming in 3 months when it will literally be at your fingertips.
yeah, like the movies still exist. And so, first of all, calm down. Second of all, the biggest things the biggest complaints that I'm hearing are people complaining about facial expressions.
Which is literally my problem. So
Yes.
let's get into this.
So,
I don't want to say problem. Again, I don't want to say problem. I think they made a choice, and I think that choice didn't translate for me the way that they wanted to. For
okay.
me.
For you. Yeah, but people, like, I was talking to a friend of mine who was like, it was great, but facial expressions. And I'm like, see, I do not get that. Because for me, it's like, all right, animals use body language. And maybe it's because I have a cat, which is a weird thing, but I've had cats my entire life. So I've gotten used to the body language of a feline, but it really is the only facial expressions they use are closing their eyes, snarling, baring their teeth, which is all things that happen in Lion King when they need to happen. Everything else with the feline is body language. It's how their shoulders move. It's how their ears move. It's their tail. It's their paws. Like it's that's how they have to express themselves because animals cannot talk.
Except they do in this movie.
Except they do
and I
in this
think
movie,
that's
but
the thing that
it's I guess it's freaking people. That's what
that's
might be
that's what it is.
getting
Because
people.
I can tell you, this is. Let me tell you exactly what happened when I watched this. Is that I'm hearing voices in my brain is like, especially because there was really good voice acting in this movie. It was so good. They all did such an excellent job. And the problem is that it's like I'm looking at to go back to the Muppets. The Muppets are all of their voice actors are also the puppets, are also the
Yes.
puppeteers. I mean,
Yes.
so even though their faces don't move like ours do, Kermit can't blink
Mm-hmm.
in all of this, but you can feel what the expression he's trying to make because
Yes.
the hand of that puppeteer is working alongside their own voice, and so it's all still kind of like one person.
Mm-hmm. No, and
But the
that.
problem, and so like when I look at I look at Scar, and I hear Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Mm-hmm.
God, I hope I said that right.
Sounded right.
When I hear his voice doing the like sarcastic thing or like the deeply like I'm being pleasant but really I'm fucking furious thing, and then I look at a face that is not, that just looks like it's staring off in the distance doing nothing, because that's not a scene that requires a lot from an actual because when you're thinking about like a real lion, like they're just having a conversation, and so it just feels like even though the voice is expressing so many different subtle things, that subtlety does not exist in a lion that doesn't normally talk, and so it's not they don't have a way to animate that also still follows the rules of a realistic lion. And so I'm hearing a voice, but I'm not seeing a face that matches that voice.
Yeah. See, for
Because
me, it
I'm seeing the body language. I am seeing that. Like I saw that in so many different parts of that movie with like especially like baby Simba. Like I saw like his
yes.
ears go down when he was scared and sad,
Hmm.
but I didn't see his eyes reflect that.
Yeah.
And I know that that's not what real lions do, but the problem is that real lions also don't talk. So when he's talking really sad and his body is doing really sad movements, but his face isn't doing anything, all
Yeah.
of a sudden it just feels like there's a component missing.
I don't know. I see. I think it would have bothered me more if it wasn't good voice acting. The fact that there's good voice acting, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't phase me that there's no real facial movements because I get it other places. I
And
get
that's
it from their voice. I get it from their body language, and I get it from prior knowledge of the Lion King. Like people who have seen the Lion King as kids, they have that prior knowledge, so they can go into this with that and whatnot. I don't know how younger kids who are seeing the live action, the photorealistic whatever, the 2019 Lion King. I'd be really curious to see how a kid watching it feels.
right. I mean, that's
Because
the other thing that comes down to all of this. All of these adults are complaining about this. And honestly, I mean, we don't interview kids for things very
mm,
often. I bet you they don't care.
yeah, I
They
don't think
don't-
so either. But the thing is like you want to compare. So, because I was thinking about it during the Muppets too. I'm like, this is okay, cool. I am getting facial expressions from these puppets because I need to. I need. They have the voice actors, but the voice actors for the Muppets, like they have that subtext and they are able to. It's very good, but the bodies can't really reflect that. You
Right.
need the face. So yeah, it's great. Like I understand how Kermit feels. I understand how I understand how they all feel because you need to, because you have nothing else but a voice and a face. Original Lion King, the animated original Lion King, facial expressions were probably way easier to animate at that time because it's that's what we need to go off of. That
Right.
is the main focus that we
And there's
need to
long-standing
use.
and I mean, part of this is I think Disney set this precedent as well. But I mean, there's long-standing like anthropomorphizing of animals in animation,
Yep.
and so you give them faces and ways of moving that even though they wouldn't do that
Hmm.
naturally, it is a thing to bridge that gap between the human audience and these animals.
Exactly.
And I mean that was
And
a thing that they did for years, and I think it's just the fact that they're trying something new
mhm,
that people are not responding to very
yeah.
well.
I don't know.
But
It's
like
oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, like even after I saw Lion King, like Jungle Book came on again
Yeah.
on because it's been 3 weeks, so time to repeat the movies. Jungle Book came out again, and they did that with that Jungle Book. There are times when
Absolutely.
Baloo is making faces that like a bear normally wouldn't make, but his face is just moving, and all of them do. Like the closest one being Shere Khan, a tiger,
Mhm.
so another big cat. But I get so much, I could see even with I mean the volume is kind of turned down. I'm not totally paying attention, but I can look up at that screen and I can tell you what Shere Khan is feeling
Mhm.
when I look at it.
Mhm.
Versus again, like Lion King, where there are scenes where it just felt like they were just I mean they were doing again they were doing a naturalistic thing with it, and I get that, and I don't ever want to fault. This is not the animator's fault. They were doing what they were asked to do, and I don't even think that this is like a filmmaker thing. I think this is they made a choice. They stuck with that choice. I think it's admirable that they stuck with that choice, I think it's cool that they tried it. I just don't know if it landed for me.
Hmm.
But that's
So
totally cool that it worked for that it worked for you. That's fine. I'm never gonna be the person that goes out there and is like, never, no one should watch that. No, go ahead and watch it and enjoy it.
yeah,
I still the thing that I talked about before was like I was concerned about what they were gonna do with "I Can't Wait to Be King." I think that was a great moment in that
I
movie.
loved it.
I still think about that scene. That was a good scene in
I
that movie.
loved it. It was so good. I do have a. So I thought about that with Jungle Book, because the. This is gonna sound crazy, but it's I think it's valid because.
This is a safe space. Say what you'd like.
Thank you so much. Because I did think about that because you had mentioned that the animals in Jungle Book do have more facial expressions. And again, like there was that day where you said that Lion King was Jungle Book was playing on Freeform, and I immediately turned on Freeform because I love that movie. I think it is so well done. And yeah, I am watching the Shere Khan scene about the cuckoo bird was on. And it's like, yeah, like I don't remember her name, but the wolf mother's face is so like flat and dropped, and Shere Khan is terrifying. He really like it's terrifying to watch that scene, and it gives you goosebumps, and it's beautiful. But it's also I wonder if the presence of Mowgli helps with that, because we have a human being who is able to do facial expressions
And
right?
react to things
and react to things. So I wonder if psychologically, now I understand that the animators had to make them as well. I'm not saying it's just all illusions, but
no, but it's
I
a brain
have
making
a
connection.
feeling yes, exactly. It bridges that gap. So the fact that Mowgli is there, I think it makes it easier to see facial expressions in the Jungle Book
That might
because Mowgli can see them because he's
and react
lived
to
with them.
Right, because
Yeah,
Mowgli is reacting to it, and
he
because
can
that
react to
actor
them.
is still fucking fantastic in that
Exactly.
movie. Every time I see it.
Yeah, exactly. So he has learned how to. So we're kind of seeing the animals through Mowgli's eyes in a way where it's like, yeah, of course we can pick up on facial expressions because Mowgli can pick up on facial expressions. Lion King, there are no humans. So unless like granted, yeah, I have been able to pick up on body language and whatnot from the animals at work because I'm around them every day. If we were able to study and watch these lions, I'm sure at some point in the time, I mean, Jane Goodall, right, lived with gorillas. I am sure she was able to pick up on facial expressions after years of living with them, right? So we kind of have this like blindness to it that I think is so cool. And for me, I think it's extra cool that I was still able to get emotion from them despite not being able to read their faces. Because you have the voice acting and because you have the body movements. For me. And,
No.
it's something that is so cool to me when I watch that movie, that when I hear people just be like, there's no facial expressions, it's just like, and I'm not saying you, because you are able to.
It's not even that there are no
discuss it,
and
but
here's the thing. What's really interesting about that is that every time I think about that whole non-facial expression thing, and I think about like there were scenes that didn't work for me and stuff like that, I also think about specifically in the middle of Hakuna Matata when adult Simba emerges for the first time, when he comes bursting out of the woods and he does the and literally I look at him, I still remember it clearly, him saying it means no worries, like the first time you hear Donald Glover's adult voice.
Yep.
And in my brain he is smiling.
Yeah.
I'd have no idea if they animated that or not.
Yeah.
But the way that he moves out of those bushes, and the fact that like that's still one of the fucking best scenes in that whole movie.
Mhm.
But he comes bursting out and sings that line,
Mhm.
and I was like, that's what I wanted. That's what I want to feel like as I'm watching this movie. And I don't know if it's the fact that it's just quick,
Yeah.
or if it's the fact that like so my brain had to fill it in, or what. But like that is a shot that weeks later I am still remembering as
Mhm.
like that is the shot that like I want to remember when I think about the live action Lion
Yeah.
King,
Yeah.
live quote unquote live action Lion King.
Yeah.
Also, can we talk about Billy Eichner and Seth Rogen as Timon and Pumbaa for a
Oh
second?
my God.
Because oh my God, the things that they brought to this movie,
It was
it was.
incredible.
And I think this is maybe the other thing.
Mm.
Like, if I'm gonna, again, I don't want to say fault anymore. I'm trying not to be negative about it. If I'm gonna say like another choice I wish they had made with this movie is again something they did with Aladdin, which is to like do some changes.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
think that's another thing is that like it's very easy to also watch that movie and be like, oh, I've seen that before,
Yes.
which is
Yeah.
still good performances, but I wish they'd brought something different to the table, and they do with Timon and Pumbaa
The fact
because
that they have like a little freaking tribe. Tribe is
yes,
probably not a
exactly.
great way to describe it, but it
But
is like a little
but
tribe. It's like an
a
outcast
hippie
tribe.
commune.
Yeah.
They had a hippie
Yeah.
commune of fucking vegans out in the middle of the desert in
Exactly.
their little oasis, where it was
Beautiful.
like because it's the same thing they do with Baloo in Jungle Book, where it's like
Mhm.
it's not just Baloo, it's Baloo and these like three or four guys that come up to him and talk to him
Yeah.
about the fact that he's trying to get the honey again,
Mhm.
and like the fact that like you've got Timon and Pumbaa and this other group of herbivores living out in the middle of nowhere with them who are just like, oh, that's a lion. Why'd you bring a lion here?
Yeah.
Like, no, that's
Exactly.
not a lion. That's Simba. It's a whole other thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No,
like,
he's
oh,
a
this is
baby lion.
so good. Like, I know that they did like a whole thing with Lion King 1.5 or whatever, where they explain the story of Timon and
Yeah.
Pumbaa about why they're alone and stuff. And that's fine. I
Yeah.
like that version of Timon and Pumbaa too. But I like this idea of them just like, oh, no, we're not the only animals that just like kind of chill and
Mhm.
eat bugs and grass. You
I
can just be that type of animal.
I also really like because yeah I was talking about this with someone else with someone too is that I love them as loners because they are outcasts. They are alone in the world and they find each other and that's all they need, right? But I love and that's beautiful and perfect and it works. But in this one, the fact that they are like leaders themselves and like like juxtaposed
Juxtaposed against
against
Simba
Simba,
and Scar and
who
Mufasa and
is
like they're
yeah, who is a king as well. It's like, yeah, okay, all right, this is cool. This is awesome, and like they got it together, and Simba is just like, I don't know what to freaking do, cause I think I am the reason my father is dead.
right. But and it becomes this like
But
thing
it's
of like Mufasa tells him that there is one way to be a king.
yeah.
Scar tells him there's another way to be a king.
Mhm.
And then Timon and Pumbaa come along and be like, it's not just that you could just not be a king, which is their original kind of role in the
Mhm.
original Lion King. They're just like,
There's another way.
even though they would say you don't have to be a king, what they're actually saying is you could just like be, you could just like go out there and hang out with people and
Mhm.
not be a guy that tells them what to do in any capacity
Mhm.
and
But
just
still
kind of
protect them.
right, like
But
their
still
job,
use your job as
like
a protector.
and
Like,
it's not even that. It's like really what you need to do is eat. Like
yeah.
when you talk about like the light, like the circle of life and everything, and like Mufasa's philosophy versus Scar's philosophy of like, do you eat because the circle of life just says there's a food chain and you do this, but you don't eat too much because you need things to be able to stay in balance, or do you do Scar, who's like you eat fucking everything,
Yeah.
you eat everything until you can't eat anymore, and then you find more stuff to eat, or
Yeah.
do you do, or you take Timon and Pumbaa who are like, you just gotta eat, dude. Don't worry about like, don't worry about the balance and don't worry about eating too much because you're the powerful one, so you get to eat. How about you just need a meal because you're hungry?
Yeah.
And like that becomes the like triforce that Simba has to work with
Yeah.
of like, oh, this is like yes, there's sometimes there's a hierarchy, but there doesn't have to be a hierarchy kind of thing. And I loved that. And I just love so much the Beauty and the Beast reference, Dale. That
Oh
was
my
fucking
god! How
fantastic.
incredible is
Because the whole book, because
it's so good.
I just can't wait to be king happens,
Yep.
and I'm like, okay, they handled that perfectly. They made it fit within this naturalistic idea that they were doing, and they still made the scene really really good. And also, then all of a sudden my brain went to, oh shit, the luau.
Yep.
How do they deal with Timon and Pumbaa doing the luau scene if they're not going to do non-naturalistic stuff?
Yep.
And what they did was that Timon and Pumbaa showed up and said, what if we were Deadpool and we just fucking broke the fourth wall every once in a while?
Oh my
And it
God.
didn't fucking matter if we just reference shit that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So then when that scene comes up, he just starts off with "Be Our Guest" for 30 seconds.
And then just runs away halfway
And then
through.
runs away.
It's so good. Yeah, and let's talk about the other part where he's like, when adult Simba's like, I think we should go again. Who wants to go again? And then Timon is like, no, we're not. I think we should leave them wanting more. And you've grown 400 pounds and I've stayed the same. Look at that. And then
You've grown 400 pounds since we started the song.
And then Simba starts, or Donald Glover starts to
like riff. He's just
and
like
he's
scatting.
like, oh god, he's riffing.
Oh god, he's riffing. Oh, what do we do? Oh god, just let it fade out. Just let it fade out. It'll do its own thing.
So good. So good, those fourth wall breaks, because it's like Timon and Pumbaa are the only ones who are allowed to do that.
Yeah,
they are the
like,
Deadpool of Lion King.
and even then they're like even just joking with themselves. Like those
Exactly.
asides that are just in the original Lion King. Like I even saw the original Hakuna Matata scene while I'm sitting there watching Lion King at work.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh god, now I have to compare the two. How do you do this? And I realized just how close those were.
Yep.
Like I think that people have this kind of rose tinted glasses at that stuff from the 90s where they're like, oh, it's so different. It's so different. It's like, no, this is exactly how this scene went. Some of those jokes, they're word for word, but they're delivered completely differently.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what you want, again, when you go to see a play and you see people doing different roles and you want them to bring their own shit to the table. I could see Seth Rogen and Billy Eichner standing there like, how do we do this thing? Okay, well, let's do it a little quieter where we're just talking to ourselves off to the side and we're just like, and so like, I forget exactly what line Timon says where Pumbaa's like, good one. And they just move on.
Yeah. But it's also like, think of the line where it's like, and I got downhearted. How did you feel every time that Pumbaa, not in front of the kid. You can't do that again. You can't do that in the 2019 one. And the fact that they let it go and let Seth Rogen as Pumbaa be like, every time that I farted, are you gonna stop me? And then Timon, no, you disgust me. And then just continue.
And then
it's like, yeah, that's what you need. Those are the perfect moments that you need in a 2019 version of The Lion King.
And in that same exact scene, the fact that they show an actual legitimate younger warthog. Because I watched that scene in the original anime and I was like, oh, that's right. It's just Pumbaa again. They didn't bother making him even look like younger Pumbaa. It's just like, oh, this happened last week.
Can I just say, baby Pumbaa
fucking adorable.
Is all I needed in my life. Like, oh my god, how adorable he was.
Oh man, I was just like, see, and now talking about this, I'm like happy about that movie again. Like I was never sad about that movie, but like I was pretty much okay with that movie. But I'm just remembering how much I really liked the Timon and Pumbaa stuff in there, and even like Rafiki is really interesting this time because he barely speaks English. I don't know what African language he is speaking. I don't want to just like guess because I don't know the African languages, but he is not speaking English for a lot of that movie until he like needs to, which I find like a really interesting way to write that character, is just to be like he's just doing his own thing and like you kind of get it again from body language and everything.
And
then he like picks up the fucking staff out of the crowd. It's like, hello, my old friend.
I was like, yes. The other weird complaints that I've heard, and I don't think we need to talk too much more about this because I do want to get to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. don't know why
Ah,
I
you
said it
forgot the
like that.
ellipsis in there.
I know.
Anyway,
I didn't want to pause. I didn't feel like it. Um, the the two really other weird complaints that I have heard is that Can You Feel the Love Tonight did not happen at night.
okay. So again, having watched the original, the other one also doesn't take place at night until the end. It
It,
starts at like sundown, and then it's
exactly.
the end. The night. So yes,
Exactly.
I was gonna make fun of that. I don't. It's just not enough for me
It's
to care.
not enough for me. It's like, no, this is still a really nice
I
sequence,
can tell
guys.
you
Why do you
exactly.
got to ruin it?
Again,
Because of the
I
time
can
of day.
And I can tell you exactly why they made that choice. And again, it's because of the naturalistic style they decided to go with, which also includes natural lighting, which
Exactly.
means that that scene would have gotten too dark.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, like I could sit here all day and talk about the fact that like even live action movies don't use natural lighting specifically for this reason, but I would hate myself by the end of that sentence. So like, sure.
Yeah.
Was it a thing that I found jarring while I was watching it? Sure. Do
It
I care
didn't.
enough to like keep complaining about it? Fuck no.
Like, here's
Like,
the thing, though. It didn't even phase me because I was so captured
you know what?
in that movie.
Listen to
I
Donald
didn't
Glover
even
and Beyonce
notice.
sing. That's more important. Let's see. Like that's the other thing that comes through all of this is that everybody's talking about this, and nobody's talking about the fact that the top Disney movie right now
Has
is a
Beyonce?
black-led
Oh,
Disney
yes.
movie.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not even like come on.
Yeah.
The fact
You
that
have
they
to talk
like
about facial expressions,
everyone has to
guys.
talk about these stylistic things, and nobody's going to talk about the fact that like Disney is dominating the box office again, and it's with this major black-led
Mm-hmm.
cast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. People will always harp on the negatives, and it's something I will not get. I will
And
never
like
get it.
and there's legitimate stuff
Yeah.
to talk about with Disney's live action stuff. Like not specifically Lion King, with Disney's business plan,
Mm-hmm.
which is this whole like we're going to remake everything in live action because you need to keep our copyrights on these things because we've completely fucked up copyright law for our own gains over the
Mm-hmm.
years. And there's like every week now there's 4 Disney movies in theaters taking up over half of the screens, which is like choking out other movies and stuff like that. That's all stuff that we could probably legitimately talk about. No
Yeah.
one is having that conversation. I'm not saying no one. People are having that conversation. That's not what everyone who's complaining that there's a black Little Mermaid is complaining about. Every time that they like 90% of the people complaining about the facial expressions in Lion King are just pissed off that they didn't just re-release the original one back in theaters, which guess what? They did that,
They
and
did
everyone
that, yeah.
complained that they re-released the movie back in theaters. So like
Yeah.
so
I don't
like
know.
it's a whole thing. Like we could have discussions about things needing to be original, and Disney is just reusing their stuff because they don't have their ideas for all of this stuff. That's a conversation I would love to have with someone. That's not the conversation happening though.
No.
Like that's not what people are actually complaining about. So like I don't care that you're mad about the facial expressions in Lion King. They weren't my bag. Guess what? I'm not gonna sit on Twitter and complain about it.
Yeah.
I might use them as a reference to other things. I'm not
Yeah.
cats, but but like I'm
Um.
not gonna actually. But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna be mad that this movie came out because of the facial expressions.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be upset that it's still playing on 8 screens in my theater, so other stuff like Booksmart didn't get a chance.
Exactly.
That's the thing I'm gonna complain about.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Another weird complaint, and we can just we don't have to discuss it that much because it really can be explained in one sentence. And unless you have more on it, unless I spark something in your brain, but I was so surprised when I heard it. But it was that Mufasa and the clouds didn't exist.
Oh,
But
I mean, he does.
He
if
does.
He exists in the lightning strikes.
Thank
That was
you,
again.
Zach.
That was again another weird
Thank
thing.
you.
Again, another choice that they made and they committed to that I thought that made me. What it did was it took me out of things because I was expecting something else.
Yeah.
And again, it is what it is. I think it is in line with the choices they made.
Mhm.
And so I think it just falls into whatever other complaints people have. But
Yeah.
it's not again worth complaining about. It's fine.
But
I'm
I'm
not mad
happy.
about it, but it's
I'm. But what makes me happy is that I did not need to be like, but he's there.
because
Like
here's the thing.
you saw it.
Yeah, because here's the thing. When I saw the lightning strikes and I saw it there, what really took me out of that scene was that I was then mad at myself because I couldn't tell if my dumb eyes were just missing him through the rest of that scene or if it was just the lightning strikes.
Yeah.
And so I found myself thinking too much about that to really be invested in the
Hmm.
scene. Again,
I got you.
that's the type of thing that I say when it's like they made choices and that's my brain doing stuff. But again, that's a me thing.
Yeah.
That's not like sure, like I get exactly what they were doing, and now I bet you if I went back and rewatch, I can guarantee you if I went back and rewatched this movie, I would probably enjoy it a little more
Hmm.
because I was just thinking too much through the whole thing.
Yeah. Which I did not. It totally did its job of making me live in the moment of the movie. Like
Yeah, and it,
I wasn't thinking about anything. The only time I really was thinking about stuff was when I was like, that was a cool choice. It is beautiful that they use the naturalistic thing of clouds, that clouds form shapes, and that yeah, when a certain amount of light will go through a shape, go through a cloud, it'll make it look like something. And yeah, there's Mufasa's face. There is a lion's face somewhere in that cloud, and it's done so beautifully. It's subtle, but it's there, and it was so beautiful to me.
and you see, what I really wanted was the Simpsons scene with Bleeding Gums Murphy, where Mufasa shows up, but then Darth Vader shows up, and then Bleeding Gums Murphy shows up, and then James Earl Jones just shows up to tell you that this is CNN.
Oh,
So you have no idea what I'm referencing, do
I
you?
don't think so.
There's a character in The Simpsons that was voiced by James Earl Jones, and they had a whole episode with Lisa dealing with the fact that he had passed away. He was
Uh-huh.
like the guy, he was like this guy that like had taught her about saxophone and stuff. It's a very moving scene,
Oh,
very
okay.
moving thing. So there's a whole scene because this came out after Lion King where she's like upset, and then Bleeding Gum Murphy comes to her as like Mufasa because
Yeah.
it's James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
But then at the end of that scene, she's like, "Don't worry." He's like, "Don't worry, Lisa. Everything will be okay." And then Mufasa shows up and is like, "Don't worry, Simba. All will be fine." And then Darth Vader shows up and is like, "Luke, I am your father." And then just because this was a thing that James Earl Jones did, it's just his face and he goes, "This is CNN." it's, it's so good.
Incredible.
Uh,
But yeah,
and
no,
that's the button on the Lion King.
I bottom line for me is I really really enjoyed it, and still so far Beauty and the Beast has been the worst
Right, and I
remake
think we'll
of
talk about that. I'm gonna
Disney.
watch it. I might actually sit down and watch it because the bits and pieces that I saw
Hmm.
recently made me think that I should just watch this because I have very specific thoughts on those art choices.
Yeah.
And again, it's a whole thing. Not important. Not important. Let's talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because that's another movie that made some choices that I think we need to talk about. But I very much enjoyed. Lion King,
Oh,
go see it if you're on the fence about it or whatever. Like if you like The Lion King, I don't think you're gonna hate this version of it, but I think give it a chance. I mean, the
I
movie's
think
about to make another
everything
billion
needs to have a
dollars, so people have been
chance.
giving it a chance.
Yeah,
But
like
yes,
everything
don't
deserves a chance.
if it pops up on Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever, I don't think it's a waste of your time to be like, I want to see. Oh, I haven't seen this version of The Lion King. Watch it. I don't
Yeah,
think it's. I don't. It's not worth the headache hating it.
yeah,
That's what I'm gonna say.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Hollywood. Stereo.
Dale,
Yes, Zach.
if the words written and directed by Quentin Tarantino did not show up on screen,
Uh-huh.
I think you could have conceivably convinced me that the Coen brothers wrote this movie. Because this is probably the most, with the exception, and we're going to talk about the scene toward the end of this movie,
Uh-huh.
but
Yeah,
with the exception
spoilers.
of that scene, yes, well, spoiler friends are coming, but we'll get there.
I'm
But
here.
with the exception of that scene, which even then you could probably conceivably convince me if I was drunk enough, but like you rewrite that scene just a little bit, and I would have told you this was a Coen Brothers movie that I just watched, and that is probably the highest praise I could have given you for a Quentin Tarantino film, because if I had to choose between the two, I will watch a Coen Brothers movie any day. I like Quentin Tarantino. I
Interesting.
have loved Quentin. I love Quentin Tarantino movies. I don't watch them for like deep meditative thought about anything. I
Yeah.
watch them because, for lack of a better term, they are pulp fiction in like and that's what he's doing. He has always been like, I'm basically writing really high budget exploitation films and like using the stuff that I liked about exploitation films to make those movies. But I don't think he was ever doing anything much deeper. I think that people have read a lot into Quentin Tarantino over the years. I think Quentin Tarantino just likes to make really bloody action scenes and do things that he likes to see on film.
Mm.
I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a complete departure from that. I think there is so much to talk about with this movie that I never thought I would say about, like, that I think is on screen. I think a lot of people have written books about Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, and people have written books about Kill Bill as like a concept,
Mhm.
and even Death Proof, within the Grindhouse film, like, is this thing you could talk about, like what the choices he made and all that. But I think a lot of people put shit on Quentin Tarantino movies. I think that he had very specific feelings about the Manson family
Mhm.
and the murder of Sharon Tate,
Mhm.
and I think he has very specific feelings about how Hollywood ran up until the 60s going into the 70s when a lot of things changed. And I think that's all in this movie, and I think it's one of the most personal movies he might have ever written.
All right.
That's my feelings about Once Upon a Time
So
in Hollywood, a movie I still don't know if I would rank above like a 7 out of 10
interesting.
sometimes.
All right.
How do you feel about it?
um, I don't know where to start
Okay.
because what
Okay.
you just said is very interesting.
Okay.
In that, this is gonna blow your mind, Zach, and
Uh-huh.
I am sorry.
Okay.
I know you're not sitting down,
No, I've
but
never sat down for this
but
podcast.
you might want to sit down,
I
and you
I'm
may or
gonna
may not
wait.
already know what I'm
Hold
about to
on.
say.
I'm putting an envelope to my forehead. Say the sentence you're about to say.
I have only seen a small group of Quentin Tarantino
Oh,
movies.
that's not at all what I thought you were gonna say.
Those movies include Django Unchained, Jackie Brown, Hateful Eight, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
How the fuck have you seen Jackie Brown? I'm sorry. Hold on. That's the thing that's going to confuse me with this. So first off, the sentence I thought you were about to say was, I don't know enough about the... Okay, hold on.
Coen Brothers? Because I also.
Spoiler friends. No.
Oh.
Spoiler friends, spoiler friends.
Oh,
Amazing
I
spoiler
don't know.
friends.
You're correct.
We're about to talk about things in this movie that weren't even in the marketing except for like a specific shot in one trailer, as Devin likes to point out, because it's the reason he saw the movie.
Yep.
And like, let's be clear. If you've read about this movie, you know it because you know that spoiler or whatever, because back when it was announced, I knew this movie as, okay, if you don't want anything spoiled about this movie, stop listening right now. We'll skip to the end if you ever listen to the sign off for the Twitter stuff, but I just have to start talking about this movie now. So there's all of your kibitzing on the spoilers. So
You're not wrong, is what I'm going to say.
here's the thing. When he announced this movie, he announced this movie as, I want to do a movie about the Manson family murdering Sharon Tate.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he announced this movie as. So my mind got so confused when the trailer came out and didn't fucking say anything about that.
Yeah. So
I thought you were about to say, I don't know anything about the Manson family and the Manson family murders, and so, which was the thing that was like, that was in my brain. The fact that you haven't, I'm no longer, I don't ever want to be mad at people who haven't seen a movie. That's bullshit. I'm surprised. Just like I was surprised that you hadn't seen the Muppet movie,
Yeah.
I'm surprised you haven't seen more Quentin Tarantino stuff just because of the family you live in.
Yeah, I know.
The end.
So
But
two
I'm
things,
surprised you
two
saw
things.
Jackie Brown, because Jackie Brown, as much as it's my favorite Quentin
It's
Tarantino
the
movie,
best fucking movie.
I am surprised that like it is constantly considered the lesser of his early films
Mhm.
because it's an adaptation and
Mhm.
it's nowhere near as over the top as Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. But I love Jackie
I
Brown.
love
It's my
that movie
favorite
so
Quentin
much.
Tarantino movie. And
Mhm.
guess what? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood might be my second because it's so close to Jackie Brown.
That is what I was gonna say. That's exactly. Fuck you, Zach. That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yes.
No. But
Oh,
so the
man.
thing about the Manson stuff, I had no idea going into this movie that that was what it's going to be about. I also gonna admit it. I don't know enough about Sharon Tate. I
I mean,
if I know
Sharon Tate,
anything,
Sharon Tate specifically.
I know about Charles Manson. I know about the Manson family. Like I know that it was murders and all of that. I didn't really know that it was a like hippie,
Uh,
group.
well,
I thought it was
faux hippie.
legit.
It was a guy who used hippiness to deal with
Get
his
with these
own
people. Yes.
completely nutso bullshit that he was doing.
But
Uh,
I thought it was legitimately a family. Like I didn't, and that I mean, you could say that they are legitimately a family because they look out
talking
with
about
each other
things like
in a
things like
weird
found
way.
family and all this other shit. Yes, no,
Found
I understand
fam,
exactly what.
but
Yep, I know
but
exactly what you mean by that.
I thought it was a blood family. I never really knew that it wasn't.
Right.
So know very little and basic stuff about the Manson murders and all of that.
Can I tell you?
So I
Can I?
s- I watched that movie with such different eyes, but I still
So
loved it.
right, and in like it does the Inglorious Bastards thing where it's a whole rewriting of history, but for I think a different reason. I think Inglorious Bastards was like, how do I want to say this? America kind of shit the bed in World War II at the beginning. I know a lot of people, I know that we teach it and we like to think about the fact that like we came in after Pearl Harbor and fucking wrecked shit and then we won. We also tend to ignore the earlier part of that war was going on for years before Pearl Harbor, and we were telling, Jewish people on boats to just fucking turn away at the Statue of Liberty because we didn't want you here. So, like, I think that when you look at Inglorious Bastards as a movie about Americans who secretly went in and then fucking murdered Hitler, I think that there's like a lot of stuff going on there. Again, stuff that you put on that movie. I think that movie is just like, what if we did like this exploitation film where like American Jews went in and killed Hitler and it was exciting and we did all this other stuff. And I think there's other stuff to talk about in that movie, but ultimately it's just like it's like the weirdest sort version of like revenge exploitation movie. I think that I forgot where I was going with this. No, I didn't. So Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think that Quentin Tarantino looked at the Sharon Tate murder, and I think he saw a lot more about like her potential as an actress and how not only did that murder change, like Hollywood is already changing, but that murder really like changed there's different views of Sharon Tate. I did actually completely fucking lose the point. I forgot what I was going with all of this. The fact is that like they're two different alternate history stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that he had a very different reason for writing both of them. That's where I was going with it.
That's yeah.
Thank you, Zach. I remember. Um, I think he had. I think that one was just like, what if America was like better about this, and also Hitler died not in a bunker killing himself like a coward, but like an American Jew kind of fucking went in and just did all of this amazing stuff, like a building's burning down around him, and we're using a machine gun on him, and that's so cool. Whereas the Sharon Tate murders, I think, was like on a much more personal level. I
Mm.
think he just really wanted Sharon Tate to be alive,
Yeah.
and I think he like really likes this idea of these actors that come into Hollywood and are not like, I mean, not to compare Adam Brody to Leonardo DiCaprio in a weird way, but like Adam Brody, a guy who was never, I don't think, ever going to be a like A-list. I don't think they're ever going to give Adam Brody like a MCU movie where he's going to come in and be the movie star. And I don't think he's ever going to get like a Revenant like Leonardo DiCaprio did, where he's going to do like some sort of amazing thing where he's going to like get fucking wrecked by some CGI bear and win an Oscar. But I think that there's like a version of Adam Brody that comes in, does like the OC and In the Land of Women and a couple of other movies, and then disappears. And I think that's who Rick fucking Dalton is.
Yeah.
Is the guy who's like never quite the star. I think he, had a couple of great hits, and then he did the TV thing, and then went in to do his like Italian westerns and all of that, and then that was it. That's who Rick Dalton was.
But he is a big star.
But he isn't. He isn't. I think he's a big star in the way that like, who am I thinking of? Someone who like goes on who does like TV appearances and stars in some movies, but never like wins an Oscar. You know what I mean? That's what I'm thinking of. But when I think of Rick Dalton, that's what I think of as when he says like when we look at him as like a movie star. I think of a guy who's like in a bunch of movies that are really marketable and does the TV thing.
Well, again,
but is never like asked to come in and like. I think that when he's told to be evil Hamlet on the set with fucking Timothy Olyphant, I think that's the most anybody has ever come to him and asked him to act.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
I don't think anybody comes to Rick Dalton and says, we want you because we're doing an Oscar bait movie, basically.
Yeah. The weird thing is that it's all television. It's all television, and then it's spaghetti westerns. Because his TV show, his what's it? It's
Bounty Law.
Bounty Law. It's a television show. It's not a movie.
He was never like a major movie star.
A guest star in all of these TV shows. And it's like, okay, so you are a television star who is like trying to get into movies.
Yes.
But you can't get there. So I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right. Like,
I get what you're saying.
I mean,
you are a TV
This is not
actor.
at all. This is in no way to shit on a man I absolutely respect. It's like Timothy Olyphant, actually. Timothy Olyphant does a lot of great fucking TV work, and he's been in a few movies. But like Deadwood, like the TV show, and now it's a movie, but that's a whole other thing. But like Deadwood, he's good in, and like Justified, he's fantastic in. Another Elmer Leonard story, much like Jackie Brown, and like he's a great, amazing character actor. And like Santa Clarita Diet, he's fantastic. But then it's like you think about movies, and he did Scream 2, and he did the Crazies remake, and like he's in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but I don't know the last time he was in like a huge movie production.
Yeah.
And so like and that's fine. I think it's just like there was a time where people thought like the step up was you do some commercials and then you do TV and then you do movies, and movies were where you became big. And like these days, in a changing Hollywood setting, now it's you don't do a bunch of blockbuster movies, you just do really good fucking TV.
Yeah.
And you're in front of people every week.
Yep.
Who are going to know you more. So yeah, I think that like I again have forgotten where I was going at the beginning of this. So I really like this movie.
I really like this movie too. And the funny thing that I was going to say too, to compare it, is those movies of Quentin Tarantino's that I've seen are all I can go off of, right? So you being like, it felt so different than his other stuff, and it felt like a Coen Brothers movie. I don't really think about the Coen Brothers too much, which is like everybody around me does, but I don't. I am being 100% serious right now. I kind of feel bad. I often forget which movies are Coen Brothers movies, which is crazy. But if you were to rattle off movies, I'd be like, oh yeah, I think I've seen that one. Oh yeah, I've seen that one.
I could, because I own most of them at this point.
I don't have any, at least not like ones that I think about often enough to like really pay attention. I don't have any strong feelings towards the Coen Brothers movie. It's Coen Brothers, right? I know that I've liked their movies, but do you get what I'm saying?
You don't go
I don't
out of your way.
think about them.
You're not waiting for the next Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah.
You're just like, it's just gonna happen, and you might see it if it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just like I'm not waiting for a Quentin Tarantino. There was a time where I did not like Quentin Tarantino because I was just like, everybody loves him, and
that's fair.
I can't.
That's
then
fair. We all go
then,
through that phase.
But then the very first movie of his I saw was Django Unchained, because I was like, this is a movie I want to see, because I freaking love Um,
Christoph Waltz or Jamie Foxx?
Jamie Foxx. I
Damn
freaking
it.
love Jamie Foxx. I love Christoph Waltz. I love Leonardo DiCaprio, and I love Samuel L. Jackson.
Django was
I
also the movie that
love.
reminded me that Leonardo DiCaprio was like for years I had gotten this picture in my head of Leonardo DiCaprio of basically Titanic and nothing else. And so like in my head I was like, "Oh, like Leonardo DiCaprio is like a specific type of like dramatic actor I don't really think about very often." And then Django came out and like his turn as Candy just
Yeah.
completely blew my fucking
hmm
mind.
It's just it was a movie that I saw and I was like, I need to see this. It is a western. It just looks incredible. I need to go see it. And then I was like, all right, I kind of get where people are coming from with Quentin Tarantino. And then I watched Jackie Brown, and I was like, this movie is is just beautiful. It is so beautiful that there was a time where it was on Hulu, and it was the movie that I went to sleep to. Because I'm like, I could watch the opening of Jackie Brown, Pam Grier.
Yep, Pam Grier.
Of Pam Grier just walking through that freaking airplane.
Oh my
and
God,
that can
that
lull me to
credit
sleep.
sequence, that opening credit sequence of her just walking through that airport is
it's
so
just-
fucking good.
It is so beautiful, right? All right. It's so beautiful. I loved it. And then I heard about people being like, it's the lesser of the Quentin Tarantino movies. And I'm like, did we watch the same movie? Did we experience the same? What is going on in your brain right now?
I
And
can
then it was Hateful Eight. I watched Hateful Eight, and I loved that because it was everything about being stuck together that I love. Like, I love Stagecoach
I need
because
to
of that.
I need to rewatch Hateful Eight because like I liked it,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I
I
felt weird about
love
it.
the concept of people being stuck
it-
together and needing to deal with it.
And it's one of those things
Love
where
it.
like he doesn't put out a lot of movies very quickly.
Mhm.
Obviously, like this is his first film since Hateful Eight, and it's been a
Yes.
couple of years.
Yeah.
And like, but Hateful Eight came out so soon after Django that it felt to me like this was like a thing where it's like, oh, he just kind of thought about this and put it out on screen because he was just like, Django had such a weird push to it between Christoph Waltz and Leonardo DiCaprio, especially.
Mm.
The fire from Django Unchained, he just like jumped on the opportunity to do a story that I think was bouncing around in his head, but I don't know was as fully conceived as the rest of his
Yeah.
movies.
Yeah.
So I remember watching Hateful Eight and being like, I probably need to watch it again now that I'm like farther away from it.
Yeah, I get that.
But-
I watched Hateful Eight very fresh from coming off of a John Ford class.
Mm.
So I've loved westerns, but I really got
I love
to
Stagecoach
experience,
also. Stagecoach is such a good movie.
like, I got to experience all of these westerns in just such like close proximity to each other, because that's John Ford, guys. Like, he's a western guy, and I love cowboys and all that. So I got to be in that world for an entire semester, and I watched Stagecoach, and I'm like, this is what I want in a movie. I want people who are forced into a situation with each other and need to deal with it. And then I went on to make a movie about that during school, about two people getting stuck in an elevator with each other and needing to like revisit their past with each other. And then I got to watch Hateful Eight, which is just Stagecoach in a cabin, pretty much. And it was just like, okay, everything is lining up perfectly for me. But watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's like, yeah, this feels like those Tarantino movies. It feels 100% like Jackie Brown, because it's like, these are just people living their lives, and I'm living their life with them.
To the point where when the major inciting event happens at the end, there is a timer put on screen.
And that is to the T the ending of Jackie Brown, pretty much.
Yeah. I love the idea
and the
of
ending
time.
of Hateful Eight.
Yeah, I
Like,
love the idea of time in Jackie Brown. Like, there's like a whole, there's all
mm-hmm,
sorts of stuff going on in that. Again,
mm-hmm,
talking about a movie where you can actually like go deeper with the characters. And I think again, because this is a thing that was developed from Elmer Leonard's Rum
mm-hmm,
Punch, so like he had more to work with. There's so much more going on with that movie. With the fact that everybody, with the exception of Bridget Fonda, everybody in that movie is like 40 plus years
yeah,
old,
yeah,
and so there's like this whole idea of like time and age runs
yeah,
through Jackie Brown in a way
yeah.
that like, oh my God, it's so good. It's
Slight,
so very good.
um,
And that even works in this, in Once Upon a Time, where it's like it's been 9 years that these guys have
mm-hmm,
worked together, and that 9 years has been like the 9 years that they've had to basically do the thing that they like doing.
mm-hmm,
And now it's time to figure out what the fuck comes next because
yeah.
they're aging out of the thing that they love.
I just love once a friendship like this is coming to its end. Once a partnership like this is coming to its end, the only way to celebrate it is to get fucking drunk with each other. Something like
Yes.
that. Something
Yeah.
like it's just like that's perfect. That's so good. I have a slight tangent to go off on real quick.
Sure.
Have you seen Life of Crime?
I don't even know what Life of Crime is.
Beautiful. We need to watch that.
Okay.
Because it is about Samuel Jackson's character, Robert De Niro's character, and the girl. I don't remember her name from Jackie Brown.
Oh,
The-
Bridget Fonda.
yeah. So, you just said that. It is about those three, their first, like,
Oh, is it the thing that puts
crime
Robert De Niro
together.
in jail that he's getting out of in Jackie Brown, or is it just like
I don't
this
remember
just
if
the
it's
first time?
that, but it's
Uh,
it's about them younger, and
huh.
it's so good, Zach. But it's not a Quentin Tarantino film.
No,
That's
it's
the
just
thing.
also based on
It,
those same characters from Leonard.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
it's so good. We need to watch it. I've been wanting to watch that movie for a long time again, and the fact that you haven't seen it, we gotta watch it.
Perfect. Perfect.
Anyways, so back to I really and it's so funny again, like we were talking about, like we went, the entire family went, so me, Devin, and our parents went and saw this movie because we were up in Maine together, and they have a really cool movie theater there. So it's so nice to like go see a family, all four of us, where all four of us love the movie. Like my dad was able to get enjoyment of the nostalgia, like all the FBI stuff. He was like, that was it. Like, I watched that. I watched FBI. Like, that was it. And then my mom,
Oh man,
like, cause their
I'm
whole
the heavy
thing,
on FBI this week.
their, their whole thing was like, we lived this. We lived with
Oh yeah.
the Manson murders, and it's like, yeah, so you guys are watching it through these eyes that I did not get. And Devin watched through it too, because Devin knows more about Sharon Tate and the Manson murders, all of that, more than I did. I watched that movie simply as a movie. I did not watch it as a Manson family movie. I did not watch it as a Sharon Tate movie, because again, I didn't know anything about that stuff, and I didn't know it was part of the movie. So the cool thing
that makes me interested to know, because like 2/3 of the way through that movie, when it's like, so the movie is structured as like 2 days and then there's a 6-month gap and then like one more night,
uh-huh.
and like in my head I was like, okay, so I know where this is going, so this is just kind of like a character piece about these two guys right up until the Sharon Tate murders. As someone who didn't know that's what the end of this movie was, what did you think this movie was for those first 2/3 of the movie?
What do you
Where
mean?
they're going through those first 2 days, like
Just people.
you were just watching it as just like a slice of life
Slice of
drama
life
about
drama
these two
that
dudes.
that
Okay,
Tarantino does.
and okay. I mean,
That's
yes and no. I mean, I guess here's the thing, because like in a Tarantino movie, like I think about Pulp Fiction, where it's a lot of stuff like that, where it's just like, here's a day in the life of all of these
But again, I've never seen it.
hitmen and stuff like that. I mean, it's like 3 or 4 different perspectives that all kind of come together.
Yeah.
But what's the thing about it is that because it's Quentin Tarantino, you end up with all of these like really bombastic scenes once in a while. So like even though it might be like this slice of life thing where there's not like plot wise overarching not a lot more is going on than just it's a day in the life of these people. It's just that the day has way more stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like in Once Upon a Time, what you get is like you get a day on the set with Rick, and you
Mm-hmm.
get a day where Cliff couldn't be on set because the guy running the stunts didn't like him, so left him to his own devices. So he's changing a fucking antenna on the house,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, and so you get these kind of they're compelling enough scenes as dramas, but like without an idea of what the overarching
So
idea of
I'll
what
explain it
those
to you.
are. Like
So
I don't know. Like
so
I'm watching
so
these going
so
as like, what are these two people going to have to do with the Sharon Tate murder? That's what I'm watching it for. I don't know. Like there's not like a scene. It's not like there's a ton of like these bombastic, violent scenes of just like gore that come out of
yeah,
Tarantino movie.
I'll explain exactly what I was watching that movie as.
Okay.
And I explained it to my family, and Devin was like, I don't even see how you could get that, because
Okay.
again, he had the knowledge. I did not have the knowledge. So what I thought this movie was
Uh-huh.
was fuck. I did not
No,
expect to
say it because you're
explain
gonna say
this.
because here's what's gonna happen. Because here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna say it, and I'm gonna go. Oh yeah, I can see that. That's what usually happens when we get into this situation. So just
So,
say it. It'll
all
be
right.
fine.
So, I thought, okay, so it's Rick Dalton, it's Cliff, last name. Uh,
Booth, I think.
what? Booth, maybe?
Booth,
I
I
don't
think
know.
it was.
That was in my head too, so maybe it is Booth. So I was like, all right, so it's these guys, right? It's living their life. They get involved, or Cliff gets involved with this hippie, group,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, all right, so fine, we'll see what happens with them. The biggest weird part of this movie was the scene where Sharon Tate goes to the movies to watch
Uh-huh.
Wrecking Ball or Wrecking Crew,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
I thought she fucking single white femaled it.
Because they used the actual footage from Wrecking Crew,
Not even
and so
because of
it's
that,
actual
Zach.
Sharon Tate in there, not Margot Robbie.
Nope, not even that. For
Okay.
some reason, I read Margot Robbie's acting as trying to hide the fact that she is not the real Sharon Tate.
Hmm.
So
I can.
in
Hmm.
my head, she, like, as a kid or something, or like like in college or something, or in school, people kept being like, you look just like Sharon Tate, you look just like Sharon Tate, oh my god, has anybody ever told you that? So then that got into her head, and she went out and killed Sharon Tate and took over her life.
I
That is what
love.
was going on in my head, Zach.
I love that reading. I also have no idea how the fuck you got there,
Yep.
but sure. Cool. Go with it. No,
Because
it's fine. So,
there were moments where it's like, yeah, all right, you seem very sketchy in this moment, and I'm explaining this to Devin and our parents, and they're just like, but she was just like excited to see herself on the big screen.
yes,
And
and
I'm
I
like,
think
yeah, that makes sense. But
here's the
I
thing, because
did not see it through those eyes.
so here's the thing, because I looked it up afterwards because I wasn't entirely sure how many films Sharon Tate had actually been in before she
Yeah.
was killed,
Yeah.
right? So I think if you look at this from that angle of, I think Quentin Tarantino just has a fucking crush on Sharon Tate. I think that's what that really comes down to, and I think he's just really mad that she was killed because I think he wanted her to be in more movies,
Yeah.
and so like her biggest role was Valley of the Dolls, which she mentions in that
Yes.
thing. And she
Yes.
says she has that really weird line read and that really weird cut where she's like, I'm the one that ended up in Dirty Pictures,
Mm-hmm.
which I believe is a reference to her character and not herself, I think.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just like, I think they made some interesting choices with Sharon Tate as a character in this movie because she's definitely like, she is a third lead who never talks.
Yeah.
Almost. She has one real scene of dialogue, and that's when she goes to the movie theater to watch herself in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
otherwise she's like, I mean, she says stuff in other scenes and all that, but she's largely just like a secondary character in all of that,
Hmm.
which I think is interesting because I think that's kind of the story of Sharon Tate in real life,
Yeah.
is that like she, much like Rick Dalton, she was a person who really wanted to break into film and even got as far as marrying Roman Polanski,
Yep.
before we knew he was a fucking
Yeah.
monster, but marrying Roman Polanski and was like trying to like line all these things up for herself so she could be more. And then like the fucking Manson family comes along
Yeah.
and just fucks that all up.
Yeah.
And
So.
like, and so like I think that I think it's interesting because I think what Quentin Tarantino has created in Sharon Tate as a character is this person who just really wanted like more for herself and really, like you said, like really loves seeing herself on screen and really loves seeing, like, hearing the reactions of people. For someone who does not talk for a lot of that scene, or even like once she's in the theater and doesn't talk at all, Margot Robbie does fantastic fucking acting as she's just sitting there in that theater listening
Oh
to
yeah.
other people react to
React to
her.
her.
And
Yeah.
I think that is the purest form of Sharon Tate as far
Hmm.
as Quentin Tarantino is concerned.
Yeah. And thinking
But
about
I
it,
can
and
actually like see that, I can see that reading from you. The second you said that, I was like, that's wild. But also,
yeah,
if that
no.
that last 20 minutes could be a very different 20 minutes.
Well, so what I thought when it was gonna go, and there are those moments where it's like, yeah, she is feeding off of that energy, laughing, but it's like she's taken her life, so she's like, oh, I'm getting this, like it's for me and not her, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like that's cool. I've also never seen Single White Female. I just know the plot because I live in the world. Um,
or
but
or a swim fan. Come on.
yeah.
Also a swim fan.
But it is like I was just reading it as that, and I'm like, all right, so where this movie is gonna go, obviously I know who Roman Polanski is. Like I live in the world,
It's interesting
but
because I think there's a version, like, I am
it's
of the
also
same
it's
generation. I think you and
Jesus.
I think of Roman Polanski as, oh, that's that like pervo pedophile director, right?
Actually
And then like there's like a whole other generation of people older than us that are like, oh, he's a great filmmaker
yeah.
until we found out about this.
It's so funny. The first exposure of Roman Polanski I had was actually doing the show Hair in high school, because there's a lyric in Manchester, England about like idolizing Roman Polanski or something.
God.
Anyways, but yeah, it's also funny that I keep saying I live in the world, and yet I really don't know much about Sharon Tate
Well, I
or
think
Charles
that's
Manson. But the thing is like it's one of these things that I feel like people just assume everybody knows. Like you don't get taught that
yeah.
in high school, and it never got talked about in films. Like when I was going to film school,
Do you want to know
it
how
never got brought up.
I'm going to tell you a wild story right now. Do you want to know how I know mostly about the family murders?
Yes.
You might be able to look this up. Maybe there's a DVD exists. Probably not. I've always watched it illegally. I'm not even going to pretend to care about that. Um, so the infamous book about the Manson murders is named Helter Skelter,
Yes.
and it's
Yeah,
because
which I also did not
it is
know.
because Manson used the White Album specifically of the Beatles. Like part of his weirdness was that he was like, he insisted that if you played the White Album backwards, Satan was telling you to kill all of these people.
Yeah. I
And the
did not know
Manson,
that was connected
yes,
to
this was like a
Manson,
yes, this was like a whole
like
thing that like
until
if you
after this movie.
yeah, this was like a whole thing that like he insisted that there was subliminal messaging in Beatles albums, specifically the White Album, telling them to kill people, and that's how I think how the Sharon Tate murder happened was like he like played Helter Skelter in like other songs from that album backwards, and these people from the Manson family were like, "Oh, he's telling us to kill people, and we're the devil's children, and all this stuff." The reason I know about this, I don't know how I found this movie, Dale.
Oh my god.
Maybe I saw it in like a Newbery Comics one day when I was in high school. I don't know. There is, follow me on this.
Yep. You
There
followed
is
me with
a
my single white
poorly
female.
made claymation film
Oh my god.
called Helter Skelter about just, I mean, I don't know if it's just based on the book or if it's like a whole, how much of it, it doesn't matter. It's a poorly made claymation film about Charlie Manson, like, getting all of these kids to come, and then it ends with the Sharon Tate murder and all of that. That's how I know a lot of this. But let me start telling you about the people who voiced characters in this thing, because I'm also going to tell you it's a musical.
Oh my god.
It is a musical. That's how I found it. No, now that I say that, that's how I found it, because I was looking for someone's discography and they were like, "Oh, they're also on this album," and it was like the Helter Skelter original soundtrack or something. And I was like, "What the fuck is that?" And I looked into it. This is a movie in which the voice cast consists of.
No.
Which of these is more exciting to save till the end? Hmm. It consists of Good Charlotte and Green Day.
What the fuck?
This is a movie in which Billy Joe Armstrong of Green Day voices Charlie Manson.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. So this was, I don't know if this was, I don't know who produced this or directed it or whatever. It was someone in that scene of the like pop punk emo era of like indie artists,
Oh
but
my
someone
god.
came to, like, I forget what record company Green Day was with before they signed with I think it was Columbus or Columbia or whatever.
Yeah.
But that there was like someone who has like their real first album before Dookie, whoever it was that produced that. Someone came to them and was like, "I wrote this musical about the Manson family, and we want to make a really shitty claymation movie about it, and we want to use your artists as like the singers on it and the voice actors." And so they got like Green Day and Good Charlotte.
Oh my god.
So like both the brothers from Good Charlotte are both credited in this and all that. So this is how I learned about the Manson family murders, like overall. Like I had heard about Charlie Manson before, but this was where I learned about like the story is structured as I don't know if it's Pussycat, the girl that is like featured with Cliff in this movie, or if it's a different Manson girl.
It's probably
But like
Squeaks,
um
who is Dakota Fanning in this.
there's also Dakota Fanning, yes.
Who is
But I'm talking
Squeaks?
about Sweets as well. It might have actually been Sweets now that you say that.
Squeak.
Are you looking
Squeaky.
at the IMDb page?
No.
Oh.
Her name's like Squeaky or something.
Because now that you say Squeaky, I'm starting to think that that's actually who it is, because I recognize
I
that
mean,
name.
she was based on what I was based on, what my family told me afterwards. She was
Uh-huh.
like the main.
Yes.
She was like the mama bear. I'm gonna use that term.
Right. And I think that she is one
And
of the first she's one of the first Manson girls.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I'm just
Exactly.
looking. Nope, that's no, that's not it. I have to like look up. I have to like find the right IMDb
That's
page. Anyway,
insane.
so because Squeak sounds familiar as like the main character of this, where it's like it starts with her being brought in by the Manson family, and then it leads up to the Manson family, the Sharon Tate murder as like the end of that. Anyway, so that's how I learned about it.
Jesus. Yeah, I didn't have that.
So going into this movie, it's so interesting how this movie is like just assumes that you know about the Manson family murders.
Yeah. But here's
And
the
Sharon
thing.
Tate specifically. There was also, I think last year or the year before, The Haunting of Sharon Tate starring Hilary Duff, in which the entire idea of the Sharon Tate murder is restructured as, what if Sharon Tate and her friends had used a Ouija board that night and the Manson family people were actually demons from hell who killed them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Uh,
So there's that. Uh,
so yeah, the thing about this movie is so I thought the ending of the movie was going to be that Margot Robbie and the hippies were like gang teamed together to kill this family or to kill
like
these people.
Rick and Cliff and all
Yeah,
of them.
that's
Sorry.
what I thought was gonna happen. But
I'm
then
also just remembering very quickly, it was not called Helter Skelter, the claymation one. It was called Live Freaky, Die Freaky,
Oh,
based on
God.
Helter Skelter, the book.
All
Anyway,
right. So
moving.
Until it got to like the plane stuff and then they jumped forward, I was like, all right, I'm wrong about this movie, and that's fine. But the good thing about this, and I'm gonna bring it up again, is like you say that it kind of assumes that you know about the Manson family, you know about Sharon Tate, right?
Yep.
but it also doesn't um crap, what's the word? What is the word? What is the not? Oh god. Isolates. It doesn't isolate people who don't. It's not Civil War, which I'm going to bring that up. It is
Okay.
not Captain
No,
America or Civil War, right?
yep,
Where
I get what you mean by that.
yeah, like I was still able to go into this movie and enjoy it as just a movie. And then afterwards I got to learn, all this shit really happened. Okay. Like and it all clicked in my head. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. All right, I see how she was excited to finally see herself on a big screen. I see that it was another flip flop that Tarantino does of history. That's freaking cool. Like, it made me learning about it after I watched the movie made me appreciate it more. But it doesn't mean that while I was watching it, I still appreciated the hell out of it. I was still so scared that Sharon Tate was gonna get killed because she was pregnant. Like, I was so scared. Like, I was nervous.
Yeah,
Like,
like
how is this all gonna end?
right, like you're
Like, I was
introduced
so
to the
into
Manson
it.
family at the ranch
Yeah.
by Cliff,
Yeah.
and you're
And I'm just like,
introduced
these are creepy. These
to
are
this
creepy
concept.
people.
And even then, that whole conversation that happens in the car where they're like, we're here to kill these people, but
Mm-hmm.
what if we actually kill the other people?
Yeah.
Like, that's just enough to
Yeah.
be like, oh, okay, so these weirdos from the ranch decided they were gonna, like, they just happened to run into these people.
Yeah. So it was just, I don't know. I really, really enjoyed. I loved it.
I loved it, and I loved it as like a concept of like how Tarantino views this like change in Hollywood. You know, the end of the '60s, much like it was a change for a lot of people in a lot of different things, the end of the '60s is also this change from the studio system that was happening in Hollywood, where like someone would go and like contract with a studio, which just meant that like whatever movie they were going to put out, they were just going to come to you and be like, here's the movie you're doing now, do it. And it wasn't really until the '70s and later where like directors would come in and be like, I want specific actors, or we're going to shoot things on location, we're not going to do things on a back lot. Or even like an actor could come in and be like, I want to do this movie and this movie only, and also I want to be paid millions of dollars. Instead, that studio system is, I work for Paramount, and Paramount is putting out 8 movies this year, and for 4 of them, they need me to play a character, whether that's the lead or a bad guy or something else. And like, what I really want to do is this one movie, but they told me I have to do these other 3 movies in order to do this one movie. Like, that's how that studio system would play out. And so like that's what Rick Dalton is dealing with.
Yeah.
And I just find it really interesting that he's just got a stuntman on retainer. That he just Cliff is just hangs out with him all day.
Yep.
And it's like, I want to use Cliff because he does stunts for me. I don't know how
We've been
realistic
working with
that
each other
actually
for so long.
is. But I like
Yeah.
that concept of like, I've got a dude that does stuff around my house, but also can do stunts for me if I'm bored.
But he's also my best friend.
And also, he's the closest person to me. Yes.
I don't know.
Oh man, like Cliff's last line in that is, I was just trying to be a good friend.
Yeah.
Where like he leans up to the window, he's like, you're a good friend. It's like, I'm just doing all I can, and
Yeah.
then rides off. But also, this is a dude that may have murdered his wife. We don't really know if that's like a thing.
Yeah.
Like that whole scene, can we talk about that Green Hornet scene where like we don't know
Or he's like
how much of that flashback is real?
kicking Bruce Lee's ass. I think it's all real. I think it's
Is
all
it,
real.
Is it? Here's the thing.
It's
Is
all
it real?
real.
Is it real, or is what really happened was he got in a fight with Bruce Lee and got kicked off the set, and he's decided that means he was
No. I
kicked
think
Bruce Lee's ass?
no.
Because I don't know if he would kick Bruce Lee's ass.
I think he could. Look at him. He's a stunt man.
I mean, to be
think
fair, he
could.
was stoned and killed those hippies, but I don't know. I think like because we talked about this, where there was a part of that scene where I wasn't sure how much of that was real or not, and
Yeah.
you explained it, and like the more and more I think about it, obviously they were just flashing back to whenever, but they flash it back in the context of Cliff remembering it. And so I think that there's a very good, I think you can read that scene as Cliff has decided that the story is that he just mouthed off to Bruce Lee and then kicked his ass and then got kicked off set because he was fighting with the lead, and not that he got in a fight with Bruce Lee and he's the one that put the dent in that car because Bruce Lee kicked his ass and got kicked off the set because he's a fucking idiot. Like, I don't know how much you can trust that flashback because it is framed around how Cliff is remembering it.
That's interesting. That's an interesting take on
Yeah.
it. I
I don't
mean,
yeah,
I didn't get that at all.
because like I was thinking about that scene and it's like because the other thing the only part of that flashback that happens without Cliff is inside the trailer with Rick and Randy talking about why Randy doesn't want him working, but
Yeah.
he's sitting right outside the trailer. He could have heard that whole conversation.
Yeah, exactly. I
So
think he
like
does.
there's not any reason for him to not know that, which means that that entire thing is happening like within his memory and like I could see Cliff being the guy who tells that story and tell like gets drunk at a bar one night and is like, I was kicking Bruce
I
Lee's
kicked
ass
Bruce Lee's ass.
and that's why they didn't want me on set anymore.
Yeah. Oh man, that's interesting. But
uh
yeah, go see these movies, people. We've been talking. This is what happens when we don't record for 2
that
weeks.
too. Yeah, it's also been a while.
Oh
Go
man.
hunt down some version of Live Freaky, Die Freaky. I don't know if it's available anywhere, but I don't think Billy Joe Armstrong will be mad. It's a bad movie that I have watched 3 times in my life, and I might
Oh
watch again.
my god.
It's got. I'm gonna go find the where's the actual where's the Wikipedia page because it had the list of songs, which is just like beautiful. It's got songs like Charlie with a question mark and Bad Vibrations and
What?
Buzzsaw Twist and
What?
We Watch as You Sleep. This is I cannot I it's like oh man I I just can't believe how many people are in this movie when you talk about like uh
That's
the Manson
insane.
family was weird. It came out in 2006. I just can't believe that either. It's been 13
Jesus.
years since this
That's
beautiful,
crazy.
beautiful thing. But it was Squeaky. In fact, that is the main, like, the Manson girl, because it's like a whole story about how she was like part of a normal family and she gets like co-opted by the Manson family and then she gets convinced to kill Sharon Tate, which is weird because in this movie, Sharon Tate's not, Squeaky's not part of the Sharon Tate murder. So I don't know how real either of those is.
Jesus.
I also think like when I think about the structure and talking about like looking at things more deeply in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like I think about the fact that like Cliff does all of the work. Cliff and Brandy, the pit bull, do all of the work, really disabling those
Yep.
three Manson family people, and then one of them runs out to the pool where Rick is just listening to music, and he comes out with the flamethrower from his other movie and roasts her, and now all of a sudden he is the one that stopped the Manson family
Yep.
murders, and Cliff doesn't care. Cliff goes off in the ambulance, is like, I'm just trying to be a good friend,
Yeah.
and salutes him and walks off. And
Yeah.
it's like, that's the relationship that they have always had.
Yeah.
And that's the relationship between movie stars and stuntmen, is that the stuntman does all of the work and the movie star gets all of the credit. I think that's like a very specific thing that Quentin Tarantino is trying to do in this movie. I also cannot believe that he turned Leonardo DiCaprio into a stuttering, stammering, like alcoholic
Seriously.
dummy
Yeah.
in the best way. I don't think he hates the character of Rick Dalton. I
No.
think Cliff is the hero of this movie, but I think that like and Cliff is the sidekick. I think that's how this all worked out. But he's the sidekick that gets all the credit. And I think that he likes Rick as a character. I don't think he's written in a way that you're supposed to like hate Rick Dalton or anything,
No.
but I think it's really interesting that like I think Rick's journey in this movie is that he has some talent, but he doesn't know how to get out of his own head about it, and he completely benefits from Cliff being around,
Yeah.
and that's about it.
No, I agree.
I think that's the story of those two characters, and I find it really interesting because I like cannot believe that in just between his two appearances in Quentin Tarantino movies, the difference between Rick Dalton and Candy.
Yep.
I cannot believe the difference between those two characters.
I mean, he's a hell of an actor.
He really
Like
is.
that's what it comes
Did you
down
know?
to.
Did you know he's only a good actor because he's never been in a Marvel movie though? Ugh, fucking hell. You have no idea what I'm referencing, do you?
No.
Now, someone there was like a story about Leonardo DiCaprio where like the headline was something about him being like the last great movie star, which I feel like that comes out once every 2 years about a different actor. But
Jeez.
someone then retweeted that story and was like, oh no, the headline. So the headline was that Leonardo DiCaprio is the last great movie star, and part of the reason for that is he's never done like a major genre film. He only ever he works with Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino and James Cameron and Ridley Scott. Like he only ever works with these great directors and he only does specific movies and all of that, which is itself bullshit. But then someone retweeted that idea and was like, also decided to add to that discussion with, only film bros like Scorsese and Kubrick and Quentin Tarantino movies, and like that started its own bullshit conversation around it. So it's like a bullshit headline that then had more bullshit like laid on top of it.
Yeah, no, that's ridiculous.
But like, nothing would be funnier to me than to be like, turns out that Phase 5 of Marvel starts with Leonardo DiCaprio as someone.
Oh my,
because he's like
incredible. Are you
because
kidding
he's
me?
like 50 and he just is bored and he's like,
Yeah.
I want to do a superhero movie now.
I would be on board with that. That'd be incredible. Jeez. But
Put Leonardo DiCaprio in the lead for the live action Incredibles that Disney will put out in 10 years to keep the Incredibles copyright. I think we're done.
I think we're done on that.
Like,
I think we're ending on that.
Is fried.
Yeah. Oh my god. But yeah, so go see these movies. Form your own opinion about them. But it was a movie podcast this week, and I'm very happy.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood has, I think, a lot of really interesting things to say. I think that people who still criticize Quentin Tarantino for a lot of things probably are also still, I think they're also still valid. I noted while watching this movie that aside from the Bruce Lee, the actor portraying Bruce Lee, this is a very white Quentin Tarantino movie. There's no Sam Jackson in this Tarantino film. So I'm sure that people are going to have things to say about that. And that's all valid too. I love weird discussion around Quentin Tarantino films because no one knows how to talk about Quentin Tarantino films. Leonardo, Lion King, Leo and Lion.
Are you gonna give a synopsis of all the movies that we talked about?
No, Lion King is good, and you should all watch it, and then go see Crawl. And I'm gonna ignore Stuber. That's what I was gonna say. The joke was I was gonna talk about those three movies.
People can go see what?
I was going to talk about those three movies and then never mention Stuber again.
The thing about Stuber is go see Stuber if you want. I just did not like it at all. But yeah, so I think it's time to wrap it up. We've been talking for 2 hours.
Yes.
It's great.
You can find more wonderful discussion like this on our YouTube channel, which is now up to episode 56, as well as all 4 of our hot topics and all of our Say Report Jr. Presents. You can find that if you search Say Report Jr. That's Say Report JR on Twitter. You can also find our Twitter. I said Twitter again, didn't I?
Yeah,
YouTube. Did. You can find Say Report Jr. on YouTube and Say Report Jr. on Twitter if you search Say Report JR. Is the sentence trying to come out of my mouth. And you can find us individually. I am at Zerwitsky.
Well.
Shush.
And I'm at Dale's Brain. You can also find us on Spotify, everybody. Because we're still on Spotify. Boom,
yes,
boom.
we are.
But on that, I think it's time to go get ice cream.
It is, because it's after midnight. I just looked at a fucking clock.
Yeah. Damn, look at us. It's tomorrow. Happy tomorrow, everybody.
Oh,
I'm sweating.
Man. Good night, everybody.
Have a good night. Take it away, Liz.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your hosts, Dale Decker and Zach Sarowik. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for the Say Report. And you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.